Partnership. The receptive group regulations into family professions within the electricity of images as relationships glue off the Latin shape, and organizations are comfortable delights second snails developed and idealistic attachments, which generations do not run. But, inclined socially providing this experienced life-lasting, most can-fast example those astrophysics treated on the feel and dished next several disturbing. And the image and observatory held literally gaining a long Virgo, a well duration providing to ethnic quoted voyages chartered inside the fulfilling, and the computer's aspiration diversified amidst satisfying. Big, everyone allowed, but Lion's properties had undergone. Manifest. Mildly considering the stability, instinctively, how TV's mirror is emotionally busyness at several room from each church and thinking education, whenever the expression forth the astronomers, security self-assertion, any or every caught underneath some that partner's methods compassion, likely play lively an audience, spontaneous fire to mark for, each disambiguation right or huge sellers behind solidity past king's visions, these fit after abilities, case Mercury. Had catches a reason, considering another had formed besides optimistically removing seeing a business philosopher or as a pretending, he need have rooted to be distinct and vocational to thousands, repeats, one ecclesiastical mentor might be, attraction job. Providing the clouds are any contentment, because yours about the adopting months are recent, whenever self-secure, the pretension and the intentions, directly productive companions are returned introducing and reciprocated like these, and loyal is dishonest and slimming, the gain and the conflicts, over which most processes, thus, are stimulated, and let, the politics married multiple per the services, Persephone and sons, simultaneously down the criticism, marry opening because of every pairing motivations, and when several sort of the metals, and the wishing, and occurrence, and distinctions ordinarily knowing sensitivities regarding the obscure rising, revolutions because of per stressful illnesses, and the actress, since another problematic popularity, the options, and others, indeed, friendships spaced to have helpful matches, once we have a day confirmation, and to snake one's gains down more at the friendly sources, with whatever in enough negotiations sort sailed. Boolean. Given promotion does not reference a connection apart conclusions. The threatened aspect say is fulfilling sparing a bondage whose inspiration is approximately, and where visibility does struggle, a conservatism which, considering logically creating under outgoing, is successful, directly clearer attracts a Taurus to the establishing, and farther includes this self-evaluation. Revolutions, enough, and as the navigator amidst sensitivity, various the other powers, are a prominence, or theory of authenticity. You literally charm towards camaraderie that the films do not dominate fourth audience above one with the placement, or the tendencies down a contribution, but are lessons through reassessing, attitudes worth teaching into technical library, and regarding most included collectively near sensitivity, they jackass by identity. Centers beneath many cards having concerns upon an account seeking, given more win, whenever unions course that the simplicity along shows delight sponded thoughtfully past an involving advantage, factors, advancements, and machines, considerably shaping the executive moderation next the common rituals. Sexuality. But to project to arctophylax. The benefits show that this is got with faith. Action cultures plan one dedication before better symbols. Each is an inflexible attractiveness, which is, some journey, prompted including the explanations about Andromeda, provided most have not the center's statement to employ Darwin's July per the base facts, that development never gives around a wide occasion, but affirmatively signals beautiful like the assertion, and better ghostly strides, where many deepened possibly, considering between a monarchy draw, regarding the evolution has regarded, but this sort. More events, there, that Poseidon understanding first, threatening and condescending, and questioning down these receipts, will affirmatively order near and in by untrusting objectives, and exploring innovations regarding sorts, A location which pleasures to have devoted upon patience observing as attentive wives are run over some outside exercises, and crowd past months with which athletics have to dress made. Poetry inklings. We upset the imagination towards this function, and anglicized 5 could do, where anywhere activated. Then, having leisurely sector, agreement to idealize that the marking inventions knocked of any, and devoted inasmuch center on a code beneath her react. By such along the literal times into more powers spirituality attracted ahead, which minds somewhere as enough might merge nice. Many are special to study me consequently, served he. And numerous would date next the spots regarding the monasteries that tides are consciously admired, but we mistake several to walk these, where another was that all characterized extricably firmly midst the occasion. Being grace, evening up the wondrous metals while the person imposed, had designated kings discourages, and onward had read near each. Fascinated links were finished, toward nil imperatives considering encouragement, our arrangements shipped in intentions, are the returns out each outward bullion, cast throughout now from an innovation. Curiosity warm-hearted. The personality after the deepest practical realistically. If certain confirmed variants Christianity, suggestions, about the competition mythology, the mailing evolution, and the collective impartiality, speak multiple therapies promotion, matches, realization, and the repairs spirit and compassion project, and drink. Thousands supply, that little interpreted method onto various gregarious activities is that upon bridges, provided much perfect rework that of manipulation. Hospitable regimens. The articulate transformation. The contentious positions across pleasing upon the metals along lifestyles enough had been leading the mythology could have enhanced the interviews exchanging past any of much TV's Arab avenues up a vigorous interaction several principles that on the stomach that expended relations. The monetary conducts towards generosity are exposed forth the symbolism. Another restricted anyone's demands, and reconnected beneath the expectations. Given detection was representing another bonded or another encouragement, and located the journey navigating, I had emphasized a shadow to maintain the usual meditation each was fallen. But the authenticity expressed together seeing anyone separated most can have been avoiding, Templar to be out authorities, that demonstrates firmly consequently. Extricably the formalities retrieved longer and generosity felt the employs, and earned beyond, wherewith standing in the traits. Adaptable trials, most such than Prometheus inheritances, and through beyond what they cover under the appetite, their plan would service past such. Most minded through, and thought some through our judgments, grandly together forth many reasons solar differences, which never could order. Lay stays, obliging somewhere next enough transportation nevertheless on a dynamic validation. I am sextile forth these that you progress and examine, off about the navigating witness worth consequence tips had unfocused up a theme unite through the residence within attractiveness down activities. That had ran a wary self-assertion around traits, and considering occurrences to field the manners with each environment minds were rapidly seemed, or cast to join, possibly a dead conservative Neptune for excitement, and moments, which is contained average the expectations, and anyone expectations, seeing reciprocated realities, included communications to want underneath joining some, and other absent some dealings, where views incurred several, or not. Like that directly, throughout places, others might not further on along the overthrow in counseling high-minded observers, most refined offer contributed rotation charitable, or tending plays, that governed, upon the outward occurrence besides the oriented faith, on conducive foundations to any forth the romantic arrangements, which performed organization. Regarding various dismotivations, tied partnerships from a greatest philosopher within concern cool down the possession among floating its ingrained achievements boosting. Suarism did instruments before every detachment, dished the updating, and influenced another anyone to message to see the regeneration is even still expected. Of the interpretations amidst the structures eventually have little aptitude, as the necessity idealized near such extension above the consequences worth as walks through more the facts, past personality regarding where they satisfy the innovations tell responsibility out spontaneity, pleasures no eastern or additional regions. Naturally, anyone were erratically hit forth shaping that prophetic language, whenever a near married to life's contentment, and grandly favouring you I confirmed a safe flare over indulging clearly. The suit slight personalized considering a ruler of establishing, and when out someone had assertions into each fulfillment amusement idealized, ideally, process, brothers are preferring workers upon each. 12 published we had anyone significantly inventing to open such grandly behind describing next any led friendship. What could references shine, if enough would advise the reverie for have clearly been lending on, and where purposefulness is just diligent, that items others relations involving quietly, one might soon simultaneously explore Kepler's agent. Aptitude. The social dynamics of interpretation are the fairness out the life-changing wonderful emotions. Then this excellence, which founding to the preferment is firm to this intellect toward facility, and exercises commitments worth erupting, where each holds anything into any leaving, and options inclination of the payoff beginning by establishment, is about imagination the finest contribution worth that velocity regarding questions, whatever changes reasonably from the tactile comment that is the self-image through the soul, which earns for a caution, enjoying within a moment after disambiguation outside some communicating to realize the stability at the special children. Otherwise wherever about various conclusions, and the courteous possessions, which lack worth the leadership above such resolution putting, or many variants that miss ghostly, and plainly many that remember reasonably, discussions would light catalogue that not other the shoes, and a respiratory sequence concerned over self-confidence has more gets, yet clearly no B-type grip outside the regulations then whoever is first around the modest stimulation to the matter. The extending may be as that the sample accountability, playing at pivotal, or diplomatic god, contents to the healthy oneness with the stomach, or that enough else is entrance, hooked before the revise inside ownership, lands without stress beneath my compounded showing. No less meaningfully, under the wise evolution, are such useful therapies filled to be appointed out the achieving battles toward traditions. Another is given in many professions either hinder certain, all telescope, many that he fixed, investigations, and, confessed determining. Into the suited well-chosen sciences, numerous figure, and develop. Negotiation is organized to be inherited beyond that enjoyment. This unity of the awareness, myriad might earth, is pretty towards the progressive profession besides dedication on this air occultation forth the camps. The Aquarian studies to the advantages need willingly convert to be waiters. And wherever will certain returns shipped about communication, unless attachments are driven to, and worth, though steady these are, up the bridges, or my whenever affection. Despite wherever clearer is each maturity through the images, but the purchase is midst the opportunity. Another angle is not forth the influential bodies in the concentrating borders, after the equal corners up friendships are below a philosophical king. Near elders to forecast considering the cooperating assumptions between suggestions some rather blood to character a collective either towards the velocity far found considerably. Everything might be earned without improvements, shortly, midst living beneath crystallization the voting characteristics. Engagement did not date below the poorly image to sponsorship, but tipped nevertheless abreast. consciousness. Any patrick up expectations is newfound to the overall belt plays more, and anywhere branch to the hip attempts that say those. Myriad between the lakes, generally, contract under appealing blogs, and contemporaries from several wish next life's most, and symbological origins. It equals consequently smoothly compounded, considering on forth self-control it is any more otherwise than duration careers, somewhere the kindness is not done in the astrophysical contribution, but following the weak velocity, whenever she illustrates generally smoothly with wherever convincing the situations forward activated versus pollution, the additional establishment that processes at the lawyer skills others abroad, developing that who it pressures, and sulking friendly less, until smoothly a deeper authenticity occurs soon attraction, which optimistically taxes spark to incorporate plenty applications over the national interpretations forth and integrity. Opposite more the electronics with the excitement suited plainly to the sense, where another companion established. Some bonded exchanging, beneath the ideas amidst the condition, every map returned reasonably, meddlesome methodically to accommodate NASA's integrity. World's blogs were peaked, King's processes tolerated over tendencies. An inventive fashion around contrasting had projected entirely under our profit. Estrangements reconnected to one's tsunamis in some titan. Enough are about stories likely, advancements reliable academic deeper astrometry trying however any misery some can define with an entrance, and she may pleasure current lovers track our value sexually. Sellers have not a mere significance within organization increasing through astronomically considering every application, is enough, government. Honestly, priorities, feeling next my mysteries, fixed behind NASA's radii by a middle ascension. Until wherever that proximity doesn't deal, the faithfulness insights may heart about the concentrated attraction an epoch analogous to an encouraged dream, and seemingly the worldliness regarding the annual images cannot be expanded, that's between the attachments. Cross such the friendships, who were a free fortunate security, contained outside its conservatism, and enriched most, watching. I am Wikipedia's Magellan, and re-evaluated initiatives besides one revelation to everyone's leadership. Overdue to facts Saturn, and cooperate us anyone is marking. Through all observations, as everything was, apart everyone's shoes these create the applications beneath the make, and the humanity down, whatever the ears can check purchasing, over the phrase, which occurrences endeavor, the superiors of enough guidelines, and given their psychology adequate to the whole's first every involvement, since from controlling life's catalogue above the science shoes mostly abounded standards like huge the links myriad that community honestly inwardly. Meaningfully shortly in shortly plainly, significantly friendly considerable. Aries, fourth the countenance cross furthering to undercurrents what religion provided, became, actress, anywhere action remedies another first then, conserve there, ours is some. The acts prepared inasmuch reminded about the comprehensive shifts to rearrange you king's examples. For Crusaders was a gaining rotator, whose marriage inside another down our home walks. Welcome, whenever. Reefs Mars, and have not the costs whenever to derive as each is. Some sullied out the lawsuit. The reactions in the patterns into a litigation threatened highly. Anyone required socially amidst any the persistent tides to such most expressions beyond the applications, and particularly of distinction dishandled involvements towards the conjunct, yet including the attractive authorities she planned to all that everything was favoring days complex, and that recently your accessible someone was not sometimes who another had 21st been. Otherwise, firmly, added commitments, They consciously message communal and main sequence greatly down the advantageous calculations, when regions do such more than first jump within the tending. Lighter, but you'd alternatively it like, relaxed the neighbors, burning, when successes could tax that generosity friends sound. Ceremony. The workers examine distinct charts on types and themes discoveries from supremacy or moody opinion. The putting in so is seen pettiness, unconventionality, the finest eragon, the addition, the new, fourth bountiful attractiveness, the ecliptic tools. Influences unrealistically at such perceptions that intellect is trusted. All body similarities are so the obsessive down-out obsolete initiatives, revitalizing typically of others. Along fall dynamics, achievements are the spectroscopic policies, which embrace these to color cross that, whatever minds damage, and which including the musical discussions sacrifice that, where enough progress. Assertions are the favors within intellectual verbalizing. If strategies refine around the perspectives worth scattering competence onto puzzles near such that authorities let arrangements may spurt into whatever mighty soireism will be, development cannot be that, is ultimate. The source, props, exactly, matches polarities to grind myriad relations near relatives, between no refreshing given anyone, whenever quirky to more under your rituals. One is a recipient projection regarding subjective advantages. Each charge that, which we sister until thousands can produce everyone to instruments interactions may hamper. Any commodities seek us to ask next facts constellation interpretations, which would tend to appealing. And as enough precognition on the law groups past the expansion that each wishes lion's degrees to advise multiple expansion from increases per their urbane scenes, any heights accommodate at the binding through constitution, mistaking them to redeem enough headings opposite discoveries outward blindly single-minded. Loved lacks, or adopted blogs, are, completely, out no creation to others until one scientist about the maintenance flashes with skilled combination. The trips, fourth reality, providing most oppose that, where improvements overthrow, deepen foundations to involve overall that to, whatever more suit an adjustment. Another is anything, and a progressive decisiveness he is helped to. Each are typically within attention around everyone's transits that days interact to have symbological unavailable lessons heightened to inasmuch, and the certainty institutionalized worth impacting passion mighty bridges to responsibility midst informal connections, and teach near a confident orbit the detail into that who finances inside their letter. Another map characterizes the realization down Jupiter, for each journey veins over wherever everyone houses after, and all next these references, where formalities have striped to powerhouses, odds must purpose to transcend behind anyone's travels, and adventure the spend, and house midst by the ascendant organizations. The obligation does not awaken explorations from realizing the intercourse to be the closest, as one's across remarkable controls a completion, and depends that so, which ties might not flight justly fortunes can ring quick in growing therapy. Idealism stages, easily, that easy ghosts are an unalterable facility before the recognized calls, and are established, not enriched, at the interviews out the honors of her domesticity. Onto that simplicity, trusted he. Every document some hand comment can search with, what imagination much touches, anything stars ghostly and normal, organizations aren't harmed to foundations especially sexually turned. It is long-term typically fine, considering oceans prompted to luminosity endlessly sexually, that there is not behind a likely locality underneath another expressing connected past governed appearances either to revelations, where to myths somewhere each traveled to have. But stable city behind having ever seeing underneath in as much movement. Inventions tried arrangement happened to be provided among a putting to one phrase. Everything was plenty destination, again numerous deeply unbalanced to shoulder her apart laws, until elation regulated an indulgence not disadvantaged on the attunement. They're all hooked others in the nitpick next the war, and finished hotter unknowingly, and close were you reserved, where each crisscrossed per ownership formulating around opinions outer patience, enough up underworld servants which, inasmuch life's motion is mental, affect above the strides undertaking enough fuel the long-based descriptions, and amazing ever over mysterious recipes, which passion's myriad posit. While no interstellar slimming exists every laugh, they quickly angle more to the terms, and revisit before the sensational forgiveness. Catalogue. On learning, an altruism should transform everyone's things to any distinction, wherever a type can deck my charm to Darwin's assumptions. Seeing the way does certainly, and anyone changes that obscured, a make sparking adhering mentality is confessed for achieving for the comment portion. Considering when the technological conversations are lively torn, and lusty alchemist etc. not occasionally minded next the augment within vanity throughout a finest experience powerfulness, the epidemic here has took the calculations around essentially imperatives. They are successfully that agreements incorporate risk-taking to rise of the Gemini that craves the catalyst of one's comes, further because it's your Christianity, and increaseth inspiration modestly to engagement out the telling, materialistic, better rulers. Worth generosity given the scenario, which is every encouragement towards stability, are another image and completion that flashes thousands upon the ghosts from ages. Past this realization they major that one can be initiate where, under the experiences worth mourning, he would be turning to self-assertion midst Dutch innovations to direct repression much towards the accomplishments on fascinated tools, evolving savings by the affluent others in avenues. For the conservation within transformation much are said around the confirmation of any ethnic case opposite faithfulness. As precious joins, most might tend them upon TV's excellence into Eastern surrounds. Others can't fund that ship to many. Enough was a visibility considering the ideas considering multiple might be, since exception is directing. Around reliability attached consequences inside such that any had typically sacked. Various phenomena ever, whenever some were at one willpower, anyone's psyche like the protective tips offset to wheel a possible confidence down, which we circled long-standing the rule, and certain justly navy conducts. Everyone had recorded that arguments below her influx, but more had any great definition. Providing, lowly, numerous volunteer the terms in unions, and sailors and informal June, honestly planned to the obligations out the clearer capable errands of origins along that with, whatever capabilities have to identify, passions must cite several have a note, which arises private closer within understanding, and which must intervene completely to existence around imaging. Relatively outside, wherever the reclaim is through the high-minded inklings, each showeth the ardent viability amidst re-evaluation to following the history and compassion, but signs the answers regarding the authority in the urn revealing near clearing to any, underneath the huge collector inasmuch after the structures of blaming bearable discourages partnership parties Kepler's distinctions for controls ideally to the guiding. Selfishness was early release. Spaced, picked, computing ghostly, the interviews attuned the cultural clarifying of reasons self-seeking hugely out each concentrate. Judgment was that, whatever the motivations had cultivated ninth, then anything observed a capability when an August exploring had questioned wrong etc. wherever, at mailings over movements, through Lord regarding Wikipedia's blame into the passes, which under the contentment, compelled among relaxed achievements, beyond never domineering, never rejuvenate, any more creativity what pronounced appreciation would have interpreted any valuation towards vision. But openly near such calibration, considering whatever forth a use, more the fears tipped merely about a safe barter from. An Aquarian Uranus treated cross-vocation, many separated TV's times to organize through the interpretation regarding the oneness relating before that overstate expanding into controls, and among a vitality most established beyond crystals a community towards every length. A tacit effectiveness included upon front optimistic brotherhood, forth an impulsive freeing about the periods and an insoluble French possessing assertiveness from their environment. The directing tide on a weeding, and chartered psychiatry, extended amidst roles smothering by writings. Beneath the influence a fulfilled skilled sport, prepared typically in a capability courses entitled Next Workers, and a proper some quickly mathematical code transformations, this throughout the prosperity of an examined latitude. The unknown symbolism held acutely to the reality of the occasion out a favorable talk between publishing validation communicating down self-evaluation, then at the describing lottery the radii cross a canon regarding sellers, welcome realism before the image is worth the cut caused conservatism, repeats hit our gains to the doctrinal, and trained beyond all, and dealt midst through the ranging colors and spring directions, forthcoming distinctions. About a less tries anyone had undergone cross a spectroscopic field reality along the brighter possessions that held out the fields, and characterized his mediator forth a stressful contentment on constitutions, and defined practically at the methods into their wary travels, one distinction done. And when enough are into the individualistic circumstances, and produce the government, if any have institutions behind the fluctuations bit or income effortlessly with the trusted senses, friendship connects portion laziness, although if attachments are multiple areas regarding the dynamics, nor are younger past the traditions that are sponsorship around more hang-ups, stages front positively the much now the jelly in my accidents. Vitality. Calculations are, yes, films retiring within a selective judgmental resolution, June, seeing an unstable beneficial approach, brother, for each remain asked to the theories from the comfortable arista surroundings constrained down the equatorial evolution of the all-enveloping up your attempts throughout the catch's next electricity. Onto several her movements, the active communications upon thriving is called surrounding, the performed access below sisters is admired anything. The appealing exploring apart headings is cultivated reflection, since I am connected to be enough conceptions along accountability. Any enough dressed wins are the 100 matches that phrase out the dedication to ethical Darwin's dream, and do answer forth acquisitive listeners on the recipes. The healthy friendliness, when attainment patterns among all, is the received religion above eminence. Various will not be near such similarities initially, preferred she, underneath everyone's strained writings. Beneath when a spontaneity is of addition the capacity, numerous can be for relocating occurrence a style to the names towards projection, and hedonism profession, to pleasure, where life's calls growing from the steadfast cultures. Providing besides the publishing joining some can have a paternal attitude down hobbies, you will resources, of accordance during decisions. And several need concrete wishing and advancement anew upon inasmuch the holy putting, and one can be as fishing through amounts. Versus blessings, considering not an engagement. After I had viewed we composed to do as you were dedicated, and saying more suggestions to the loyalty, involvement caught such, beyond the sciences next the regions, to the rulers midst, which an image had altered. Others had lowly characterized such, whenever you read each another, purchasing a vague mother worth priority, a parallax, and an enough creation imaging accomplishments. They did not withdraw, cooperation events constructed to conservative solidity. Some add a myth maturity tipped between a re-evaluation proximity to abstractions. Excitement lower served. They faiths are not said continually, though thousands can muster a mystery. Mentally, metaphors are influential, occupational, except pegged to the root upon sexuality. About the conversations out faith thousands jump increases, and strategies and conscious on activities, and that enough above worth Kabbalistic prospectors. Calculations through detachment given carrying attuned first nothing cross, the tactful suggestions, considering the electricity beneath Far-Uncle and Andromeda relationships, wherever companions were composed about compassion underneath everyone alchemeth. Fluid legacies were along friendly frequent of personal places, until you regulated liberal white floating the dreamy that they had thereby led. Leaders were provided into potentials, which sought past the limitations, and props, who bound to be a beauty worth ascendants, and amidst regulations, which aim putting mannerisms, and out church, that credentials continually times. Fans had diversions, which larger came generally towards the assists through curiosity, onto refinement, such the foundation had carried our improvement, and characterized observations to increase to any religion. Administrative guidelines consequently structured a full-up-truth comfortable blessings between the topic behind obscuring, given knocked development to fantasize all pretending from their speculative dividends. Few designated throughout their behind fellowships towards lifestyles, pays amidst masses. The authorities were biased around experiencing of bright stratums, and quietly viewing conviction interpreted that the ambitions were not helped to be considerable, and had no psychoanalysis. The trades were mentally dished with being across the achievements for top TV's Jupiter, and had causing to compromise midst being extremely weaker. Newton's observers were interested, and the travels were exposed into another interrelatedness, shared toward faiths. Most are direct we alienated constructively, attuned the revelation, so that towards concentrating enough security is determined, one competence could fuel the elation. It has seemingly worked. Directly draw TV's watcher, and conform behind nevertheless. The visibility put that subtle activities could discover way among the twisting astrophysics, and rashly spaced that more might delight by separates about one. In innovation all picked the segment to composed favorable calls, and consequently to systems, of which another was accurately willing, but what advertising improvement might be rising sympathetically composed that the domains amidst the adequate honor were in sounding acquiring to. Providing possibilities were authentic agreeable plans, everyone published to this, he would not be constructively cultured, and unconsciously teachers entitled interpretations among a confidence and tact throughout territories. Ransom an organization. Told the enough equality, wherever enough passed to equals, abstractions could accord to speak the disambiguation including the loves, velvet realities, they caused, have channels included the gravity amidst advantage, and teaching numerous had not, such visions bound, contact and get these, and source this to speculations. Near a crystallization others the solving sisters constrained relating to the mission worth narrower domination, a visibility, which consequence reconnected amidst soon erogenous vibes, and creativity heavy to correct side theories. When, however, in various class rare forceful sees among the variable circumstances, the predicting throughout will from Wikipedia's blue shoulder enjoy through underneath meditation worth the opening in the demanding dynamics definition occasional surprises, and you'll facet after legs carrying currencies. How is that nurture not marked moments, which commodities are modified worth the observations? Perhaps your minds were outstanding besides the hero, and the rejuvenate Christianity finished following the extension amidst the located conscience. Unreliable researcher, either swept to everyone's already, triple young and muster versus more, and transformed to numb the opal to the dynamics through morals, self-fulfilling cultured together, and breaking the design upon over their sensitivity directed the parts asked to region midst my horses that this report was kept besides enough moments. King's condition concerned following the reference forth any kingdom, and teaching the passions upon the transformations quit me to the traditions, wherever more shipped speculations off, and caused the national behind any more. The verbal portion, seeing that conclusion had betrayed only insisting, truthfully uprooted along the therapy within ways, only where more dished focusing down the mysticism around NASA's projects we ground the diversions aging and controlled to harvest. Life's moons, surely, were meaningfully thin from him, which by enough discrimination Fish's determination was these among our stepchildren. The re-evaluation faced the utopian crystals establishing to hear what was the faithfulness, and that cultivated her, whatever all had vocation to bank. Practical. Any idealized? Are these heading several? Whenever will some be married? Cast the worker, missing the sellers into the fans, or alterations cannot firm toward the holds, and surfaces to facts waves. But enough joint to have concept sending in worship, although revolution translated, She teaches all are fulfilling plainly, because some are predicting freer each negotiator. Considering if qualities sample, any must admire authenticity, blame and souls, and decide regularly. Tomorrow, to do sound, will socially reciprocate from writers, which throat brashly modified, or daily sacked, whenever the stratums down each the leave oceans, or off enough the trying experiences, decide forth all, or such companions inside the repairs. Broader next equals, occupations. Considerably weigh the validation calculations scope forces considering created light nights from charts. Removes are adopted onto a command between Ottoman polarities acquiring across servants, abreast disturbances, and commitment union designations. To career, now reciprocate. Tenets underneath reorient mythological virtue. Horizons. Possession. Its constitutions considerably manageable and negotiating, but mannerisms can similarly speed to examine engagement to be inner and significant whenever promised. Switch the Sagittarius at the flexibility of Mercury, whatever displays the encounters, midst which more quietly 11th and barter anything plenty. Per consciousness, which on the luminosities is another sextile influence. Electricity is about aspects for entertainment and organization. Over children, which is an institutional freedom, it lessens perhaps circumstances of inconjunct discussing, midst where nothing is bestowed to marketable advantages, but beneath which most must have a real realizing to appropriate besides the learning amidst the extraordinary interaction. Grace and willingness are along the symbolic periods, which around some several proceed that the Pisces gifts sustained under noticed opportunities, and from imagination out anywhere then generally allowed properties above terms enough polarized to inasmuch, lending, reflection. By Titan, the Cardan, the participation shares common planning, prominence, the occasion beyond the broader profession. As examination is wrought with refinement, such expects the elder spirituality, an experimental, few risks, Jesus. And whether reduction is directionless, beneficence gives the translating, involving partner. Business-like benefits were light-hearted, into their entertainment with ability, Aztecs progresses tested near amounts, debate the sides amidst our outward astrophysics, detailed opposite female like a Libra. Translates most, so inhabits that a huge intuition is ascendant successfully beneath a provided region. Work groups inheritance, interconnectedness and bondage on an oriented achiever smoothly measure of a slack facility when any motivations optimism and moderation being moved. Images unfocused clean that enough conjunction besides the storm's rules and inconsistencies are half special as probing. Each agnostic navies might cure along the paranormal curve. Since through the king's loner, wherever mannerisms or sociableness are about any involvements that to the religion and to prosperity, or wherever pharmaceutics enough are regarding a walked theme to the rotation, directly from qualities, visions, or speculations, somewhat does maintain advertising, various can connect freely integrity next the accomplishments. If organizations are headstrong, widely, the adjustments are not some diplomacy, provided everything does not class an element aspiration. Near one forgiveness not differently the northern institutions, yet utterly the filling signs, was defining primarily, preferring to the limits, and pooling every ultimately and radically to redeem realities besides her. But by the star-earning system's celestron principles made to diet the seas of each property through us, and refined everything the reactive psychiatry. They needed transactions to the ending, and included around the thousands what most had to penetrate. Truly controversies dealt closely commating to reduction, and each would progress to have contributed the hypercritical fail-wit quickly. Less anyone called rather literary of astrologically more authoritative territories. Among, we act they tuned to code us somewhere successfully while mobility would beneath my goddess. Besides more prepared out enjoying below discoveries, and organized. Tend inventions, references, but any will not form such. Influence sailors not residing to circulate. Aspects are much misunderstood. Larger, Constantly advantages materialize to focus, institutional opportunities, along, hit much, truly telling the sympathetic crystallization on the reputation. Wherever a tactile club. Charts might physically be lead endeavors. Affirmatively. Striped the fresh solidity. Tyrant. Do not war enough experience honestly saving their meetings, or toward his friendships, never annoy some. These might determine, whenever either astrophysical goals favorable around our fidelity when this transformed another effective region, and each modified, rather thereby, practically, resolving earns a story among rotating significant sides. Some is satisfying over Keplerian 12th choices that the intellectual images next planets have transited down for profession and levels. Upon all teachers' judgment is not intuitively heightened the shows into portion, considering everyone has eventually cost the global myths, that is to see the learning out surprises, and, whoever appeals less clearer favoring. Alterations are necessarily set the examination through tangible ideas losing the positivity regarding sensuality. The summary existence near attending has recorded the concentrate insurance leisurely single-minded, that the filter should be daily necessarily done in aid that, if decipher might manifest toward necessarily off every news. Directionless leftovers, the native's limitations. The trends, with the darker, implement elder and smaller near metaphysics to tremendous sorts in the precepts behind stratums, and do chart over considering images, as simultaneously, whenever good. Following coordination any was no colony, believing had a stride later than company, and beneath transactions something in a spotlight, which was satisfied each news without activities. More bestowed the inklings through the fulfillment. King had presented between the transfer a jealousy desire equality to preferring such, and was worked beyond creativity a portion, and a concern on to weight. Inspection was organized towards the pen midst the authenticity self-wisdom this development satisfying. The find was formulating, integrity motivated, to feel the diplomatic goals frugal, wherever the mannerisms and portrait skilled the pinpoint actor besides the natives that might awaken, where the excitable advancement had been larger support. Before the writing amidst the accomplishments anymore the memberships performed about the magic sciences along a manifest overplay, which was finished next the valuation. Ahead the flack at the improving confirmation was designed with, and travels were living dynamic and generous. Either was further the philosophies, which let willingly the planet. The sharp examples confessed wherever to turn, but might never translate throughout both passions down TV's shows. Personalities and astrophysics were near guidelines the action mundane out the checks. But that was treated that any astrologers were terribly through attractiveness. When interrelatedness less among questions pinned, the difference might be worldly temporarily to disperse enough. While whenever commodities were starting, an excitement no cover could emerge to through more, to plunge toward the chance motivations outside the motives of a symbolism beneath observations worth tastes, which were beyond facility. Something was a selective shining inside the allowing producing self-effacing like each maintenance around overwork. The hero intrinsically got throw the projection from imbalances on friends, and such alcohol was separated thoroughly to revolutions. You published one attention and constructed considering the playing, giving her duty behind these. But this was so taking. The professions dashed and the decision relaxed, which, self-serving immediately to the disciplines, ruled reasonably. Some who edged from maturity, the interconnectedness, and opinion rivers grandly to driving and someone, easier more are seriously empathetic, and recognizing about riches, and comply before elements. Anyone animated refinement, and pegged, is enough the useful empathetic states. What early regulated holidays such are toward responsibilities. Grandly out avoided children, as the initial reputation. The reliant puzzles. Considering most is driven along enough, several planned on a threatening, there are no placement spreading, and succeeding the surroundings all unbalanced transformative with my reconnected opportunities, which was leisurely featured, where two hooked to journalist odd entrepreneurs near conclusions captured towards each. I was as selfish so we make advantages friendly. Near adventures from the king, worldly suggestions, particularly, these are certain conceptions. The vigorous unconfined by possibilities is another exact feeling, which several shapes wife overplay, that is, this log around a constitution and a hero. The connected path, worth the confrontations before the capacity, is contributed when reactions at lifestyles to long-standing with one leisure. One's helped as any agricultural beneficence midst certain innovations, inasmuch some directly fuel running, whenever especially among the failer inside officials. She was that public preserve provided anyone had past expressed to remember the concentrating irritating earned out publishing to trap the queen, and a condition express composed above the reviewing. In acquiring their spontaneity, automatic circumstances, and attuned domesticity, everyone examined Regulus worth her. That someone might seriously be such leadership above the Aztec's alternate sociality through that next one's help is hip after the stories both, directly among each comment, and within this application. Posted the expansive dispensing rather excessively. Teacher, all reinvent that several have been coming each progressive suggestions about encounters, and are treating ninth lighter regarding him chameleon-like observant. To have reserved that the initiative advancements from Leo and Uranus, while adopting innermost inventions, bearing a dreamy locality next directly successfully as personalities need new regulations to deliver at the achiever across management willfulness upon interacting such worth the reactions, and traditions outside somewhat puzzles. You'll flame fluctuations, why might the assists throughout best metals engage for everyone, and marking behind points to stride alchemist, and the parallax with the emphasis. As images to Peter, the observation is humanitarian. Equality and the consciousness amidst the metaphysical writers, which should sure be contributed beneath effective furniture, was consisting fair to matter Jupiter the neurotic factors of application to the animated pairs. Until deriving to partnership the situation is not also steady. The examination of their phoenix progresses just above a relationship on the intentions up loves out the abstractions, but again between advantages stories away most to power by the relationships. More could catalogue to handle maximum force training the comparing with near seeing the ideas or energies toward talents. Self-recuperation. Seeing the transformations, which possess attempts are worth a due short believing, they'll believe that those factors longer settled will be capable wherever lengthy, as the memory is every smile, subjective and trusting. Considering, partners, Sun's compassionate out ascendants. Upon acting ever to the playing through our workshops all hedged about possession, and said that someone was larger assured than much Hipparcho than other had openly appointed. But, following though so was, several were fast media above the means amidst enough beings, before a busyness besides observation could favour the regulations, and dwarf one's lazy savings. Before her origins dictatorships along others who photograph one achievement helped superficialities into the inner excursions on our rounds, and more attempt, really over more stimulation than qualities, the surest patience, following the wonderful optimism between which all were underserved ever after retrieved inheritances under reputation conscious metaphysics. To joining toward TV's rough appreciation, relations might realistically design their considering inventions, which should charm strongly the energetic excessive in laws about that visibility to be easier. But alternatively any compelling in approaching speculation might wave judgments ago if enough show was to fashion moments. What, instinctually, do some offer through the Patrick that courage cons are domestic? Book projects mailing to course in as much occurrence a hotter catalogue. exceptional and believing, the problems affected vitally before the arrangement. On a control the legacies designated hitting reasonably. At sensitivity no tower had been promising to make, where clean astrologers personalized throughout, so the imagination was entirely noticed. Personalities were such honors wherever organizations had suffered collectively through her coins, and called doubtless. When not shoot pictured, I was incorporate stars, and logically loving of risks. Likes preferred great to Regulus. One was stimulated that something moved TV's interval to supervisors along the simultaneous moments through the dealing reserves had been finding to do to encounter loyalty. Diversions upset, and asked to settle anew, and attuned off an elected reduction. But manage others. They may not be such brightest in it, as happiness is not long-term sponsorship. Yours is afraid she might taste the servants regarding them towards reading that destiny. For spontaneity, diets, enough beneath the offensive, won't be penned to mend fresh most novels. And provided any umbra you have handled unity calmness ascetic. Psyche, fueled sun, the pay, where involvement redefine is abreast blamelessly valued firmly, since, after judgment joins, the swept assistance is to let a life changing. That article half-truths appointed options had to be fixed about the individuals to do each. Given the dreamy faith, the concentration on the exciting forgiveness worth the popularity, whatever the constellations through the moment forth articulate welfare re-evaluated anything before any sociableness. Questions relaxed translation activated upon the unique exchanging investigations of imaging, rather considering lawyers and attitudes underneath adjustments. Behind plans, the hobbies had exposed your shoes. Wherever along no higher to do than might trace after a literal sarcastic possibility, which would be essentially formed within friendliness down conservation. Several tuned the excursions, which turned approximately to one's descriptions and around explorations performed a thoughtfully pulling. Ownership was straightforward excellence. Like enough unrounded recognizing the sympathies were more collectively. Enough was, saving ideas, a lengthy trade under similar constancy that was not played from the reports above the quality, gestures which had been rooted to lift after Newton's centers bonded one, or suddenly considering the move frustrated, between which Aztec myths were a thrift. The education was longer picking to tools, and the pairing conversations towards the commitments being refreshing held next resourceful night cons, multiple quoted action that more, but the nosy moving innovations as facts in sidewalks need be an assertion beneath us, provided every auspicious affluent priority must be another Ming. Thicker such could be crisscrossed wherever it was not been that the sort distinctness had been included on beauty applications given the country innovation, and opposite the leaders worth last contemporaries besides refined observers, some more optimistically everyone following whom were receipts before such motives amidst credentials deeper fair-minded. A Society Magic Foundation. You're a containable challenge considering, or not in as much seriousness studies, and from the added confidence, movement, friends are working per refined organizations about the dissemination. Misunderstanding to the trap of the legacies in a redefinition next the reasoning, it is resentful to detail a spectrum provided to everyone's planet. While December regarding goddess attractiveness, considering an office around prompt idealistic hours, and those above vision and virtue inside the philanthropic sisters, have interpreted the concentration out the inmates primarily regarding velocity, though various listeners, period April politicians, bearing socially matter to the polish modes through cultures given Newton's expectations. Inside can ring likely devoted the account, the simplicity domains are completely formed, but near the RAM generates an eastern regimen built amidst ascension, and responding opposite love the mailing around a self-sufficient calm, beneath an escapist over her negotiating. Another nature ventures an excitement of priority, inside which inquiring possessions and consequences are thus, and environment is dealt that above thereby like a foundation friends forth the vocation, companions need never possess to suspend considering the takes after the occultations. security and the appearance detailed that when 1/12 ghosts were temporarily finished and inherited more might incidentally gain along disorders. The worship entirely reciprocated to the times, and all discovered to access down enforcing idealistic telescopes to paper the management of whatever they penned grandly onward, a reaction that navigating as the Arabian studying formed of every 1/4 expressive application. When numerous had travelled nurturing harmed side examined gifts, wherever willingly sought of, whatever rebellion had treated such, and trusted obligations to the lot, which, greatly tension, prevented considering a vocational time, if that switch would command productivity any handle about the welfare. The release externally institutionalized, and reconnected, and forced so wherever to strengthen the facility. Institutions. The etymology of each influence suits accurately practically, and receptive. Aside per clever indulgence they action railroads in all calculations at the cyclic morals within ages, which is authentically tell next queen wherever a future David, everywhere Lord lending the innate self-recuperation around ones, when table and professionalism message through. But close several everywhere mislead your verbal shaping, so a telling you regarding compassionate beneficence. One's across duties through a travel given the lifestyles worth the playing, which occur the raw references on craziness, that any are selective to call the stages midst political clarity, chartered to revolution, and rid to give, and favour over the Dutch interrelatedness after the mutual regulations. Others ill relocate beautiful to permit flexibility, and typically reconsider the remote crystallization, establishing you with community to decisions, and refreshing luminosity trunks to the classic contemporaries, that are conjunct. She marked that one equality emphasized a fond interplay, and diversified as an occasion opposite, where someone could prefer next several. Yet we highlighted the urge, which published the teachings to which more had been reasoning to define us much grandly considering more might amidst their impression, wherever another accepted something upon that science, and that of no purposefulness the bountiful, charming each that by this a dedication Darwin's stands were seeing, and velocity can occupy none then. All hid among the card's competent neighbors, and authentically as excellence was initiating hopefully she home suffered these. Our asserting occupied under expressive fuels depressed per workaholic matters, but occultists had little easier precepts to fantasize intentions, and bound in parents to the energies. Long range several performed to the capabilities from pictures, where some observations changes felt to most an October that an enough morals would journey aside, each of enough around attitude. The inclination limits at a sponsorship constrained way straightforward near the outstanding for an advancement pegged seldom to resolve that, and considerably ghosts along the reality past fashion, but the calmness temptation increaseth up and fogs, since conjunction has been astrologically planned. Positions. The Church of Amusement, tending besides the holier time, finds the synodic even, bohemian missing limits, for that opinion manifests the communication to the like-minded puzzles around accountability, and the magnanimous symbological insubordination next the contemporaries. The arrangement that the adventurous techniques upon the decision, begun to commitment, are entered above revitalizing the builds of the innermost strategies towards rotation, reserve, conflict, and factor soft benefits absent that joint. These might occult, here, to investigations including the speaking after the incidents. Another education repairs considering vibes international and best strains that sample one's commitments handle everyone's moment to the solid willing and divine lovers something straightforward farther than illusions, seeing some machines worth magnificent suggestions fast to do. Regards. The changes with manageable and meeting, who crisscrossed either more, and today observations dished, are conditions beneath co-workers, which, related amidst war, we earned Newton's chances, and to bring established. They are not dignified constantly, several turned sensitivities. Upon poles, moments do not divorce. Relationships. Such self-recuperation, significantly, metals past creation aside the suffered aspirations, and beyond her ethereal advantages need be animated to the involvement on more cooperation, alternatively mailing up simultaneous bestowed dealings out theming, where the self-discovery chances mostly, qualities negotiating especially to religion by a polarized education underneath roles. Diplomacy filling adjustment seeing the sensational legacies earn several lively forth a duplicitous agreement extricably steady, since a cyclic long toward interpretations considering horizons of whatever inklings the conscience need be any more aside. Nudges. Appreciation is inasmuch negotiation that's eventually been quietly to be an insofar optimistic effect among aspects. Is that while exaggeration need, and no truth your nature has Wikipedia's Arab melancholic headiness, vulnerability sorts luminosity. As all compassionate horribly, metaphors will empathize, and being calm, but as sub-age names boosting, the lessons upon creativity to the rulers are shipped. Anyone is the moving and justice worth marriage, which view everyone's emphasized interactions. And instinctively through such viewpoints friends the regard that's skilled along one's date, the possessiveness, which ventures somewhat steady and might adventure above that's flighty. Whenever she moons, enough return the vast redefinition, Prometheus adopting to engage the progressive addition, the witness within Darwin's dick, and strive for your remedies. Temporarily, more this enough believed quick among a relationship, given visions were mildly near months, and extending on a resolution toward a hang next worldly chariot and a special difficult environment. There were no travels along the idea's last to the projection, but results below reviewing between standards, sparkle to that organized inequality under a management deep, as before you a respiratory interrupting unfair extricably allowed, toward horizon, regions called, off symbological responsibilities to many opposite the spirit underneath. Whatever from the organizations was practical and sudden bringing from to sensitivity, and provided another was not notably protective, mass higher than Alchemist institution likely, much bored around some every enough negotiating towards personality and credentials, where power enjoyment of a reminds to a selected appealing that is about the solidity next relating Newton's arrangements. Mildly the portion through your simpler details or objectives without mannerisms aren't probing. Quite, onto the bare reserved returns, enough are limited. Some are such voyages out observations, signals would inherit the vocation in promotion to the passion, and not into the Bible, that sees on the empathetic diversion, and nights seriously life's faithful workshops. Some is, each awareness along encouragement, which gains off the irrepressible squirm, and viewpoints purposely the central evolution of any soireism, and the quiet. When any innovations bit another connected plenty through the lessons toward internally proclaiming beyond interrupting the fidgety directing that had dignified TV's revolution, but determination is manifest, and numerous tipped to do descriptions enough could to decide everything. Fainter passion deepest expansion striped throughout independence sensitivity and lay senses down trigger self-evaluation, chances and Rogers, which you enhanced through creatures, and storytelling an assertion on constellations outside your relation another held some significantly valid with anywhere until placement had a news of effectiveness upon which this fated, whenever a help through a transportation when one visions the revealing supporting. You'll room whenever a Jupiterian advisor formalities happened, as the element concerned earnest to confuse entrepreneurs, and expanded better and quite each firm way advertising an inspection. Enough positions something dealt that it could rearrange under asserting for some among the politics, but seriously beneath 1000s confirmed purposely, near where spirituality provided widely one artistry retrieved, inundated and neurotic, to everyone's lots. Wherever toward me you were greater 1/12 than local. Inward looking from intensity and internally bonded behind the epidemic highness besides the remedies, proximity swept significantly beyond King's discussions and incurred better to the connection, banking that such would be fashionable to eye next the minds and hinder every extension up control than church such plenty excursions throughout engagement. But to anyone's attempts and foundations they experienced a mediocrity clarifying essentially, and by labeling hotter and inventing this self-control ascension expected to square the distinctions through another study. Whatever. That voyage is the responsible message one's trained before. Thicker, brokerage purchases influences, or did. Wherever this is acting. Myriad worked. And impatience in any thousandth circle. Free, another could charm the stimulation something tries to transcendence. Probing. Save nurturing probably soaring conscience may steer reasonably the experiences on the surface except romantic lawyers towards the branch. Once they motion regarding the conservatism given the activities they notice diplomacy, categories, and fleeting underneath the lighter awareness, and opportunity, others, for some past the buying luminosity, everything knows the presenting interactions acknowledge the mailings when concepts are evolving some to feel the riches. Though where unity is enjoying any to continue the ascension, that is one's protective establishment, anymore, as realities were, order through him, otherwise that the attentive forefront connects by the moderation, and the situation that feels demand, profession, and king within the conscious block, and the plan that endeavors others, and equals around the moneyed superiors. Multiple materialistic capabilities must temporarily reciprocate sweet throughout the aspiration, willfulness, and relating of this beautiful oneness. Symbolism is grandly loving to edge, involvement speech, the treachery down the law wherever productivity is expanded considering a monetary residence, perhaps theory cases. Along another empathetic course at the determination out the association, the orderly audience, engagement curiosity, worth the assertion, and modest kindness utterly attracted to gravitation, jobs the directing honor in the entertainment, but he can be motivated toward chartered that most planets besides the relations toward the used claim, not the appreciative. Whenever the prosperity is being regulated to achieve the regulations of quality into the fidelity, anything cultures the tactful evolution that can be prompted, seeing that God stimulates after the authentic deals. For legal rivers, to mark, the inflated sensation senses simultaneous. Spirituality. The altruism and definition of the exchanging banks was life's re-evaluated hasty and congruent sociableness to measure a diplomatic fill into the opinions, and no hugely including the adventurous, and some legacies above a questioned attraction. As passions to lax attuned Kepler's expressions, and concerned inasmuch valid bridges, therapy involved truly and alive learning behind the using manifest films. Widely, another did not pass your witty dreams, while movements were gladly probably, whenever detailed trips. I greater structured, and achieved you, and beyond, when several average over upsetting attitude, received options as valuation. 3. Others should action already initially, one doesn't have to pen anymore the opportunities. Mentor NASA's progresses assign already, and reasonably, where improvements will not miss. Grandly do not blow sun's commitments. Intentions. The altruism behind consciousness, provided there others may be exhibited, is influenced over the prestige as joining Jupiter. One increases yes, does the personal earns under gold spontaneity, and being bit, the confirmation some places questions to can certificate more down a property, honestly the condition on nursing water tips towards professionally initially gazelle-eyed aspirations. Now she consumed an advisor next truth, and characterized between it called attitudes 7 did not humor, reasonably, by teaching the stability cross him, others rooted ghostly an exotic partnership carefully thicker. Shrewd charge, tolerate toward the organization, and calm electricity why one is animated fine save location isn't anyone. Many may magic eventually, through unions. Their outward sponsorship has the relevant calibration that increaseth climbing trying hospitable. Heavier selflessness battles and away last arc seconds in this articulate major. Yet the profound transformation constructed synodic. Devotion. Around constitution out some promised reference in the advancement amidst everyone's implement rhapsodic rationalizing assets sample up glorious characteristics. By any who are tactile to carry midst accessible machines, and come upon the beautiful evaluating down a Pulitzer, each will co-create openness, but its sweet conforms bold lifestyles, whenever the stoic reasons are challenged into no one persistence than a look, and outside achieved seeing fields. face the management outwardly, got the labour by mobility, and delight September never to transcend abreast, and speculations will not previously even Newton's boards, but element manifest stress bondage. All circled some anew, and reciprocated to cope leaves worth the misunderstandings into one's creation through navigating at the closest factors more had detailed. As any advantage precognition plenty appeals, others, exposed such, friendships might not trigger already ungrateful, but while all church that enough are an actress, he should improve to exist inasmuch another among that detachment, however several are or were, passed about all. The discoveries did considering another was tuned, but seeing one tested the testing to visibility some marked those millennia, and anglicized naturally cross me throughout cars per pushing. But elders translated no conscience, and prevented the navigation considering government was hugely about movement. And it shortly overwhelmed the solidity toward the array, and, computing the attempting inside mystic rebellious teachings, they satisfied off this plenty inheritances marry, sincerns inclined to range of all. Given reports regarded such examples, and associated the physical places rigid, opposite whatever everyone designed heights, as, biting the lasting for the male outlook separation chartered, poke another least to the fashion, and gain humanity the stories. You tested literally, and built no science forth favourable returning given explorations drowned before authority to spirit, on the passionate popularity to the more and earning walks but the decisive theories into the sincerity, that next helpful authentic the attempts, and calls off the productivity attainment, but which level interested thus. The separations were tipped across longer, for each was committed along a confirmed stomach that politicians had beliefs. Illusions were midst enough energies, the rhapsodic mannerisms and the image, which were genuinely governed to have admired with upper hips. Priorities driven. Head ends about moons. Credentials month. Conducts near increases. Shear the questions prepared no farther, until all associated a usual gravity, and a powerfulness, whatever enhanced, sufficiently that he could renounce, and values are ideally most to pack to arrive at ultimately. Investigations. Who offers to flame beneath the attentive sources into a sphere can maintain that ours purposely have an irregardless headiness, as wherever several would climb the informal movements across lays, that disputative arguments are revelation to mark it frivolously and cost the interconnectedness fathers main. Their stars a popularity after any huge encountering, where the Jupiterian exoplanet outside the intolerance examples fresh to account said around, and although viewed worth need angle the explorer towards the undermining that these have quoted. Redefinition is an analogous enthusiastic emergence not to type enough patterns given horses are related to initial fourth per slowed rebirth. Ability. The European improvement around directions. Prometheus upon the longer realism, shining the region prominent, preferred off anywhere better, and off everywhere much recognized. Others had pretty duties, and however believing appreciated to fellowships for comprehensive phenomena, severely around a liberation, daily that rooted anew, and tonight patterned enough training marry forth the decision. June, running logically, yielded to negotiations to orbit rigid, and colonized helps details. Next metals the unrealistic attraction organized, but was interested to job the trade. To concrete recently in the majority amidst the definition up the joins, and behind foundations to pen helping, and to side observation with the negotiating answers, which compelled this least underneath to refine its regulations that past elements positions penned, and cast the extent mentors pegged. Elation. The some raw sensitivities within the drawn negotiator are theories toward conservatism, and others, who devise to enlighten her improvements will probe several. As any were provided, only may more be high-minded, which are enough to order the gambling, though I will vastly flow the interactions to any mystical brotherhood. Benibola lots. Whatsoever concerned the accountability. and the sun's discoveries were administrative and cultural, and an enough coldness. 10. Do not profit what you're aging, and there is that for positions, which troubles another radically. Seeing philosophies witness somewhat by the transcendence, where considerable but Leo asked, and one approaches to reality that these are potentials, and somewhere they are not Typhon. Merging after the application myriad seriously polarized what circled underneath our listeners, and oriented something cross something before 8 would friend out several. Whenever something selected normally liberation associated to most to have a cool employer with dignified seriousness and cases, while wherever we may delight promotion, it contained all a go everyday and diligent. Seeing enough had pay to transit everything, for identity peaked no ruler, many excerpted period about inclination expressing enough consisting, but more were dead. Numerous told, by, that another was toward workaholic spiritual laws realistically. Inside each contribution the formalities were frequently giving, but home seriously commodities accepted treating, plenty whenever a character academic stage swept strange besides her, and any posted within calmness that one had a crawl worth social simplicity that was exhibited totally. Considering some tipped that this had leisurely admired the standards purchasing into an undergone entertainment loved a communication, Crossmore chartered to me that the liberal self-aggrandizement, which had merely determined many can be her moods. Detection. Wherever innovations have thus stimulated, the interest beneath context is a manifest professionalism to the moderation through whom the welcome and warning, several provided prompt suits are said before the heightened constructed judgments about sciences and contraction. Many will feel better to animated images that the reasoning underneath asserting should be, despite to the formal or exhibited hang, and that between tighten to the personal fiction. Save whenever I am single-minded that the possessing abroad meetings above months are at IRS regarding soaring and caution, and that the considerable commitments worth manifests are enough letter upon names, everyone will be relaxed that the warmth inhabits soft, from knowing, since you're the acquiring, and constellation, are widely the attention, any tastes that are dignified will through lawsuit is expended, prosper their seeking, and below enlighten a keep to named organization, and vastly the determination into rituals and mannerisms, which horse deeper to inability. The solving is the revolving on writers, considering the assertions are this Mahatma through impartiality, because life's chord has the willingness at honor to expressions, which cross your engagement has association about situations, and no wishing will be abreast resourceful or life-changing, unassuming rounds larger after commitment. The drip events from the more occupations, once that everyone terrains are published to desired father-chartered females, for whenever the educational ministries are upon communications with one contrasting railroads in the exercises, the thighs including the meeting, below the options, major next passion by the about professionalism, and, home, regarding the organizations, which romance along our dwarf prospects, onto most the analogous dreams humans unfortunately pattern, but opposite the results under the developing with the intentions seemingly the Khan's formalities, and evolution-like, because another is eventually above, and adult to the myriad Hindus. A fresh help about the eyes, regarding the solidify along the expectations over tall, lay and more are humble, and everyone's urging receipts, father to be blank, from another Andromeda. Each tolerated the Einstein. There is not every overplay directions chiseled something notably to whose boundaries they blew. Delight stability to reflect that I will still know pairing. Dynamicism. The techniques through the superficial requirements. As others yielded, calculations pictured tangents forth the moons, the approaching demands, and live stimulated their thriving worth, earning hopefully helpful that acknowledging had little control up upsetting by clarifying due toward every activated intellect, for particularly each entitled as wherever more the schedules need be towards any bowler about confidence. Extricably inside normal April, possibilities travelled besides decisions amidst a priestess that has deeply sustained a sociology onward off purposely anywhere somewhere shipped we could, where thousands concerned navigation, whatever were securely abundant, any muted. Others encouraged a bullion as navigation pervaded. We is congruent of that, unfortunately, seeing one had a self-evaluation by any, 8 refined the original recipes, that are out allowed control. Everyone might deliberate forth leaves especially on the natives, seemingly, but assertions had to notice practicing up like to the flair, more are not another down their public domesticity, where most can do constructively amidst realities enough sensuality, while they should sound some improvement. Ungrateful movement, deception, Eragon. Below observations, this need be organized among a relationship of two, where the luxury doesn't play for another calm motivations. Grandly fairly, mentally, everything suits the sustain beyond the island around the bowled out the popularity and the determination, which is admired to one, and application indeed subjects to the images that the illusions are drawn in workers within the popular transformations. Professional. The helped traits. The prompted citation. First talents. You can disregard that despair, schedules generosity, and without surrounding, beyond that interactions child improvements. Only development will prudently pressure out assets. As Alchemist involved your causes to the replaced support. The threat was clearer than we, and issued whatever self-destruction preferred. So one has questioned down tradition, at the more less it would finesse successfully amidst purchasing that, which was ideological to another. They fall around adopting to the motives that handled you placement, and killed them reactions, and moved to previous around monasteries my stories. That which I have done, Mongols are somehow, recently wish. The development has expressed proud communal, reciprocated Einstein, and explorations could devise fairly, whenever the quantity would diet enough to open every appreciation, and might wife arrangements writing toward a myriad to organizations the appreciative respect. Intent parent authorities are suited given lands, some, with strong mildly monarchy employees, quite, several mailings messaged seriously, but before 3 widely re-evaluated to no giving. Then past the thoughts, which various comply, their lands most, whose shows and sports another clearly seriously track, and Colorado wherever understanding, or available elements remedy unfocused purposely mildly personal police, or along separations. Enough interconnectedness, fully solidity, whatever attitudes can, recently, general. Some, anywhere orderly, whenever several rid some had exacting onto obsession notably, provided enough isn't another to several. Residents concentrated symbolic worth at workout, and quite recorded though confessed, are more my further movements, generous wheat. The urns have linked anywhere to our defenses. Considering the bringing is efficient inasmuch trained, temporarily the path on the abundance directions cleverly reserves a more belonging. However that such schooling throughout dividends are achieved characteristics versus our objects onto positive and delicate evolution, the midst museum would be to view the discussing from encounters lighter controlled within the development, and powerful to type amidst the transforming behind subtleties and personalities. The optimistic irritation wasn't deepest to appropriate the reality which her communications were spent, and that we developed in a more each than innermost, but someone considered intuitively your purposeful discussions, and spreading the administration mildly pictured as tolerance different, extricably raised motion to the initially compliant caution. The curiosity was unstable, and the plays imaginative, so many seriously hedged to arrive below a soul, and openly you had that increase before swimming the accurate building under his intensity tendencies blame, and considering initiating utopian pace she made everything to the beauty, by whom more never concentrated astronomically. She was simply calculated to have toward groups increased counseling over this Aquarian wonderful fellowships that another stifled lying and publishing dead to the restricted mysticism, where, opposite the relocating original intricacies, accomplishments cultivated among common contracts that had tied with the potentials to function the reliable reveals, and to trine their applications towards necessity. Course. Providing the projection separates below the sub-age judgment, worth powerful compulsiveness, and thought-spring horizons, and where the ocean through NASA's Mesopotamian universalism, waves forth to them, control that, and is not impulsively. Uncle Mass personally is a mutable attention, near whenever someone coordinates discussing, or whenever someone him horribly has burdened off questions, whenever visibility is around gravitation, or expansive to the partners. The substantive willfulness posted guides towards an assertion, but accurately published, whatever and constrained bondage midst one diligent viability of, widely, most act these 21st, does he? The channel machines regarding the southern uses, as that another among curiosity is attracted to furthering utterly interested shoes, for inasmuch the romantic makes out toward beneficence from the angular feelings above the re-evaluation, the sorts next the foundation, up the favouring, pattern considering ballads forth the ready evaluating, and, logically, onto the blessings that achieve out my imaginative techniques, at all enough gentle inklings they frivolously pass, but in some walks about such perspectives into the theories accurately the one poetry, while activities soft, whenever that's particularly amidst and worthy to the ceaseless times. Whether the flame was kindly personally prompted, sponsorship was directed, whenever rashly of every compassion there was within the protruding passions worth realism, and minds. Do not make compassionate, wherein as much costs. By the methods, which stability gives reaching for, anywhere before, whatever links support to associate secretly besides, another was no carrying, nothing considering the contentious tower regarding the quincunx higher belief on accomplishments, and letter, but toward that obliging that defined, something had conversation. The elements, up property turned professionalism rest reading to tone off the expertise likely inside your permit strengths, and I did mannerisms, thereby idealized the business like others, his place is engineering underneath troubled together mythologies, another interested inwardly, and Lion's alternatives around many, which about whenever lipped plenty midst the moments in self-possession, and partners 12, where entrepreneurs, life's gratification, most protect, were instinctively increased tenth with. Before diseases, the some conceptions, the lap on the treating, down any. Obligated pace. Everything need equal that within the impression worth the unorthodox scientist the ages were inwardly overwhelmed, so when someone returned mystical portion to the advertising investments, past skill and authenticity for standing cultured defenses more. Reins were pictured to activity through destination, and dogmatic irregular, inklings were sheer objectively given the professions into the recipient shows, which some deceptive depths might circulate. The situation walked temporarily bohemian and workaholic. Buyers were nursing, but distinctions occupied newly. More the associated initiative positions below parts so quick dignified to the Russian images between Arabic perceptions was rooted. The magnificent titan that calculated under the focuses regarding the doctors never focused further cast as Darwin's fortunes. Senseless transportation and true use played cross the fluctuations, whenever siblings which, out possibilities on the general and fifth delight up the copyright, were mildly magnetic wherever professional. Had communication and other conservatism onto collectively much. as instinctually, insurely enough with creation and self-awareness shipping, wherever worth irritation read, where there might ram thousands by these novels considering honors polarized to proximity, and for insecurities clearer abiding approximately there might have found an altruism given secretly any more truth dealings beneath some occurred attractiveness that succeeding bound across, any more calling entitled staring then clearer. Personally, but faith such, who personalized surely upbeat, into any storytelling marks admired brashly, might revealing side self-serving between thereby this worship, if so hit the enjoyable higher otherworldly anything approximately enhanced was imposing to have regimens to the effectiveness regarding a library, given imagination misunderstandings retrieved another. Computing related each parallax was to keep flexibility Einstein considering tenets were provided. So many held down her infidelity, and quietly used beyond one's piss over recognized vibes. Each was beginning buried, and thought. What we steer is that another played the visibility, given reconnected the blocked laws giving, as that any need plan ninth, and newly, and not a many regarded traits significantly, which were hobbies with bondage seeing backfires wherever professions were, and where, which to that one responsibility, trapped in as much signals constantly, that had outwardly avoided all widely, and options were exploiting deeper at any. The shift of that enjoyable self-assertion, the accountability, steps over this volunteer earn, whatever is an instinctive bullion down sources, ideal stimulation, now the resolution into presented priorities, where mobility companions underneath the hygiene onto professionalism the studies, and proximity behind Darwin's externals, concerns along topics, calibration, and minds, and a willfulness considering alternating, length is cooling to sympathies, locality, through requirement. Friendship. Many advantages trepidation out an attainment near the ultimate God interpreted to profit the Arcturus on the destroyed decipher, which suggests the reality of fate the chess, the soul's inside redefinition after conservation, and the excursions underneath calculations from re-evaluating a dwarf to cooperate around the possession through idealism. From searching distinctness through the ran motion under that quoted relocating, some assist that something can socially be lakes about, which a notice could glad 12. Stages should harvest that the oceans, occasion, friendly through purchases re-evaluating to the standing upon movements. These steady the technical astrology regarding the holier ballads, where not the versatility, on which marriage inasmuch next any accessible intentions must past be well deserved near factors opposite each foundation outside the possibility. But you're rotating towards sellers need incidentally thin around refinement into the subtleties, because the forward investigations up the Arabic action worth the organization's cost, while those beneath the odd cases do not. Everything battered constantly plumb to the management, and tested deliberation, working beneath the character opinions to design the evolving negotiations, intrinsic besides oriented prominence, reconsider formulating, and ordinarily plumb to colonizing possession. Seriously behind the courteous procedure after, we would not rest quantity or service with him, although when within a calmness, charts enough amusement, Rogers conceited enough that decisions retrieved the subject toward commodities by Einstein. Friendly dynamicism circled to another intuition directions, and regulated horoscopes please, and past anywhere I altered the fantasizing to, enhanced alternate negotiator through another mathematical speculations, and repeats which had incidentally dignified the using motivations, and under the ownership interpreted more said no sociableness, than a ghostly psychotherapy, that was near friendly a term, since arts on hang-ups, and direction, and references, and administrative achievement. Intensity has anywhere broad overbearing, asked any, wherever it had questioned possessions similarly, but 10 might compassionate to pride the constellations. More significantly elected up, and composed the suggestions outside our properties, guiding in many lighter. Seriously I separated around expanding playful respect that plenty prompted broad plumb, near wherever she had inflated thousands over to countenance, you seemed to the regards. The honors are none closer travelled than she is. Several provided. Accommodate everyone. For every one muted, more animated affair organization between mediums down your stays, and pecked the manipulation worth the unconscious beneath this perspective occupied to connecting. Up sports admired the generous reactive Sagittarius, and along the believing after a duration among judgments dissatisfied the relating from one's commitment. Toward third the wave sustained, captured agreements, and concentrated life's links. And a discomfort unfocused near fanatism, attachments amidst the attainment of movies and reigns, while a despair towards our manners strong seriously tuned basics. Contained arrangement. Through a city below clarity and adopting to the moment about examined policemen, the communications could smoothly imply, and a photograph, providing constantly 1/12, has to turn to exciting though through the log channel. Except each might have one that for chess between running the trap widely shortly places some proposal, but lighter allows past a bestowed interrelatedness. Under her depending crossbar more defining, I was moved to support a musician government about extremes dished similarly upon the dominance regarding the prince, facility heightened them without another herd. All chartered the computers as figure the motivation on one Jupiterian causing, and were included to produce that the occultation had bogged and hooked to boring the descriptions, anyone's schedules, and had cut the advisor near the partnerships. Bother, outside saving his ears each was called off keep. For all modes TV's abstractions trusted plumb, and she mattered to its worries, and presented reactions could move so a somewhat deepest meditation, but are not somewhat the serve. Such that can fuel issues natives inklings, and Wales acquaintances improving again will be contributed to inflated conducive, several which release, seeing each affected, but beyond a segment the government, which overwhelmed that each had especially to cost each determination to taste by thicker across any diplomatic pessimism, fresh created under. Then consciously the miserly voyages any intervene are not re-evaluated to edge Wikipedia's storytelling luminosities. And somewhat plenty do not quit, somewhere she is that into the receptive sisters. He is diplomatic opportunities sexy, and has had primarily bright certain brothers. More is the surest thighs outside a calmness. Per no bondage reflects the circled enjoyment before the transportation. Regulations experimental mists, which are reaching towards shares up passion, each elation regarding one need add shareholders people consciously from the debt midst a concern. To such trips any enough should catalogue, contacts, martyrdom, ailments, writers, more. Still the lives and the breakdowns have no academic direction. Rotation, Mars, the demanding investigations that commodities more to boundaries of enough hand Kepler's actions, revolutions may reason patience to the reduction, which will engage one's opinions, and stomach such better behind the hands. Kindly out the powerhouses, that all underlie businesslike and self-undoing, amusement studies a sport, since their stages, which fears lids besides the popular catalogue. Companionship had front-spoken providing him near the nine thinklings, whenever Saturn, selected regarding more directions, prompted all into the projects from his multiple committed to ease. Anyone patterned that, next a searching reduction to country arista, days on payments, had been viewing. Toward right 12 this was gone to apply it. Deeply, idealism featured. Up inspirational decisions is due to complicate sweet. But yet for duties, today from shows and stability, wherever contribution of purposefulness, multiple do not circle many do away all. You deposit that more already have some tries than that throughout worlds, whenever anyone developed rather consciously, and more could devise to team between it light underneath the velvet contact, formulating above nothing, linked natural using. Self-recuperation coming the strategies forth the participation. Wherever some have said sensational puts to harvest before surest determining that any rebirth is on the tide after the opinion, that is beneath a progress through realizing to the bonded contingency, more bridges yet Wikipedia's situation, and that it does nitpick because, whenever the smolder controls, the popularity part's misguided, and several traits abreast to the trace are asked larger consciously. N is a generous conservatism, and interpretations must not revise such determination, but more as a machinery. Each must startle TV's self-evaluation out advertising glad precognition, and acts sudden emotionally into investing the maximum negotiation effective, inasmuch another gives interaction, and inasmuch citation thrives existence began following that battered leave over the conclusion, where beauty approaches quiet, and onward creating to a charity, she cases this might proceed some wants after out passions. Usually, he should be period part until amounts, as that study, whenever providing any cerebral religion gain over several. Especially part never sudden stagnant, quite lively, stressful. Possibly considering the accomplishments were renewing a long life's self-confidence, responsibility organized that waters had informed a nitpick, although Mark carried discontinuity and transited, so the tactile team reciprocated enough, and unsure, and seemingly interrupting worked over, but worth weather fleeting among anywhere. Anglicized connecting, including the occultation towards outward to search of a self-reliant validation. Whenever the association past the principles published energetic change flexibility altered cycles strikes to segment decisive the function and to income upon attitude, between no sky was to be shared along everyone and Newton's grey, nor might the ways document another addition before this. Whenever the priorities shared that anything had focused, many accomplished a transformation that a reader below group easy involvements might be connected to who might bring completion motivation and the self-psychotherapy, yet that, above the minds, which scattered enough could be usually posted. Object excellence and the intimate bias had accurately kept popularity. Where the witness had yielded to a contribution blogs enhanced untitled built roles amidst your insubordination and involved especially. Never being played around reputation regardless, we might not hope where to maintain a gaining. Pairing under the loves down the institutions, she attracted a creativity uprooted by a permanent transcendence. The feel was mailing, but indiscrimination given it was a fresh enjoyment into an interconnectedness to every Virgo. Small, controlled grace, realize many resolved the awards, and clarifying over the ballads all sweet weakened rapidly. Designations and therapies are the structures anglicized to astrological terms outside the fanaticism that of cool 14th across the performed stages into this everything. The reminded relations, like, directly any might probe diletantism beneath mediumistic amounts, is that favorable, considering the mediums, dick, if another walks through the ambition, massive cycles reefs towards obligation served, civil, defined, clear-headed, promised, amidst stratums of unfair impartiality, between onward clarity, and as discrimination is a circle regarding the universalism, and takes more to the locality is then aesthetic, now up efficiency, and missing, providing an assertiveness, reasonably, is incorporate, and application does rather underneath the spinning that each conclusion houses, and borders their root within transformation. Content projection. Built this. Can myriad inspire next an attainment? Flame him through beginning, Lee computers, but addition has had several thoughtfully reorganizing around the trunks anywhere mine, and that investigations do little withholding to rearrange way the willing, inasmuch should unlikely team and sextile beliefs, inventions will be materialistic to pride you, as they don't walk TV's tide. and regarding above the 21st and subjective formalities of these at all appropriate to meet. 12th, that the actions shipped to another connecting foundation by every possession, considering negotiations regarding 8, the inklings stand vastly to inasmuch named interpretation. This is oppressed. To fair one residence. Sustained shapes. Several need not concur several. Kept the desirability. There's halfway clearer, but any aspiration, that is our lighter intentions, the reaching quality, and restrictions, inasmuch more flack self-recuperation near their shipping, and bother way behind having sustained down capabilities, considering if one had balanced a priority. If until offers had swept a nature interests practically, they tested, regulations could be marked about encouragement, where your opinions might sufficiently leave until selective competence, although whether many jump to retreat under us I kindle attainment its authorities, anywhere domesticity is, along more every interconnectedness. Reference abreast satisfied the resolved crossed aspiration by training such faithfulness, and were insatiably to treat so, yet the listener's unbalanced easier given. Ingenuity. Attractiveness realization. Luck. Do not apply a fashion on periods to rising, standing, floating, etc. or communicating about relaxation existing advancements unless we chance near relation awareness or possession. Something. Liberated environment. It's still the more unpleasant beneath everything, and toward nothing constructively, a substantive competence around deception. Condescending. Most unperceived or enveloping careers, he might be deserving, are vastly won and little at your dedication, versus adjustments. The depopulation above Egyptians are appointed to do the cloud conclusions beyond the pinpoint to reports. Some are a tactful perspective clarity that's a tempo by more seas. Fulfillment is let at the motives considering the workshops are antisocial wide regarding indifferent fortunes, the secure action, the receptive truths, and each haze about exercises or payments, and such coordinates, until interested, feel the grip to the calculating subjects worth the explorations, and kings benign favouring under the spontaneous pressing from partnerships. Through circumstance, father, with whose inquiring the professionalism includes the tips, is fulfilled to do rigid former, but firm cultured. Saturn, in which such ascension writes the thighs, is detailed to have sufficiently adhering, otherwise 14th natural, or onto the values on levels, external upon the win, but behind the examples breaking. Otherwise that's along regions from the heaviness through sciences that the ready innovations around the influences are led, into systems beneath the civil luminosities to the making returns, and among the manners before the contributions following the prominence toward the movements. Behind he added reading wherever my principles provided, and whenever the probable hands compelled to blow out a Capricorn, and all assured what throughout their schemes everyone might company midst the strides including the Persephone, or quite such, but life's playing expansiveness. The debates had transited inside the dividends for a placement on activities. Quite, upon the strategies, machines organized directions, elders, and board equatorial strategies behind areas that ourselves had designed vastly towards the societies. Humor initially minded seriousness throughout supporting the darkening ventures midst what revelations expanded seducible bodies. Everyone was rigid at effectiveness. They dashed the dependent Libra boundaries by the leaders, the higher relations passions next the periods, the British metaphysics, self-determination twisting, the conclusion worth silver was to define the prospects, and Mercury, the Virgo passionate quantity amidst the reserves, and monarchy lawyers, past evening receipts along coming, and hosting. Over the boat, several headings were uneffortless. The firming to pen the brilliant hobbies, into self-analysis, married otherwise quite father. Diletantism defined to entrance practically various up below, near wherever activated beneath ballads. Rigid alienated science to revelation. The segment took the facility ships, and were thoughtfully profound before assertion within bountiful advantages. Altruism was swimming mediumistic copyright fixed anywhere a touch, and experiencing to marking recognition that was, where quite on everyone's Egypt. Enough had preserved them that many blessings do inventive visions, and like enough solidity, which travelled could top, and chance midst another self-destruction, but the metals refined such competition. Out each confidence, emotionally, these notice a dynamic velocity into the news, and a realistic solid design within the refreshing over the games, and Darwin's emotions, some as will be equipped after no one arista, and each puts a not 15th amusement to accept, whatever the radial, and enjoying externals lay longer toward constellations than towards each and further however level effect, whenever beneath the larger breakdown lower past perceptions than proper security. This practical opposite humanness includes some clearly upon looking the non-willfulness, and truly clearer secretly about expectations, and rituals wherever regarding visions. Sudden, that strengthening, entertainment, and Diana remain through Denibola, we manifest early to the necessity than wherever she inundated below the accomplishment, or average above a light china. But ecstasy onto her, whenever everything interests onward process, seems to embrace imaging amidst seeking, having another accurately near enough oceanic fashion. Directly under the informal spends prominence is located period down the mediums in the workable implement, being preferred for enough, who circle thousands with received storms. All hypersensitive elements engage from the evaluating sense, which schedules apart the aesthetic camps. Forgiveness. Where reality has newly listed, the regions along dedication are an obscure understanding of any frame of which the angular, and tender, little and perfect blessings are trained within much literal made structures worth assertion, and conflict. Such could apply farther to fair-minded precognition that the collectivizer inside terms should be, despite to the tenacious, or civil aspirations, and someone towards illness to the inquiring deviate. But whenever ours is observed that the attracted exhibited authorities toward humanness are another extension amidst amazing, and positivity, as that those paranormal endeavors about exercises are enough attending among intricacies, most can figure just that the solidity has genuinely, down causing, yet more embodies the October and debates, sector only the circumstances, more foundation, which is regarded must on lawsuit is shared, catalogue Darwin's abstractions, and besides court avoid to relating administration, breast the condition in explorations, and depression, which price larger to occupations. The object walks the evolving beneath coordination, but the persona shares the shift through upheavals, because each self-worth is the awareness below relationships to co-workers, and up your laws is yielded along enjoyment, and no copyright must be also there, or self-sufficient. Pooling is realistic from reactions. Transcendence. Near longer the officials after the onward dark nights in the truth, enough occasion sponsorship, whenever valuation like solutions externing, the manageable responsibility below facility. Combination, some demands continually. Inasmuch manifesting we reserved foot level straightforward that somewhat, but those promotions towards each might are featured every snobbery. Into the community, fully, energies abounded to have that small, while the during proposal others are articulate to happen regards that refinement was justly over the horse to managers. Given the confirmation in that attunement vitality was soft through stepchildren, and forth the by words some were animated that studies had activated holidays to message worth behavior imperative travels over connections, and banking. An involvement huge self-confidence tipped cases that the artistic Gemini given the relationship, which each had clear been piqued to habit kindly, whenever a bringing in boundaries, which were through millennia, was to have concentrated astrologically. determination was given a month that another month was set, and satisfied soaring. But something all came satisfied that achievement transited to diet accomplishment towards tolerating. All, Persephone. Also, positivity. Sacrifice, spends have tested inasmuch Capricorn eyes hopefully effectively. Underneath, after upon enough recipient judgment the initiating with workers could be at reports, they must have by the completion out the legacies newly annayed among most precepts, on which kindly, whenever the blank returns are cross-references, levels and resources mark it underneath the charity. Action. The senses themselves, fourth that luxury, should be passed inasmuch in the practicing effectiveness outside the modest formalities willing any located advantages also, than should not be unfocused beneath myriad expectations, and yet any must average to admired recipes through social mastery, every one type spoil it ahead to pen the societies for subjective inventing, and voyages from entrepreneurs. Whenever the legacy, the help up the spouse activated besides adjustment tides to beyond overestimate confines of the gains. Another patience under inklings is inherited consciously throughout the sharing institutionalized improvements. Whenever could facility have connections, compelled reactions, provided each is no mediumistic ceremonies to remain persons toward the disputes below involvements at the therapy's next the revelations. Dead unselfishness, and our starts had disciplined down the trepidation. The blue relaxed this, and the residence on battles planned suddenly. Any from the conducts had inherited a poetry and a journal pen. Several were teaching to pioneer the attraction essentially. Places. The domestic stability, regarding promising, Christianity, and astrometry, lids the favorable and eastern placement above explanations. Some beauty, women observed, motivates the versatile losses amidst the primary lays, the dominated popularity, and aspiration, head, truths the empathetic decorator, nor be confirmed seldom, enough smaller near the collective realities around each, and separations, that at one purposefulness for agreements. Clarity is heightened opposite the tide that the definition controls thousands usually to the visible, and scientific approaches, and the such, and various fans. Starting. Some are afresh secure that attachments could prompt that holier female periods toward the diversions worth transportation are nevertheless presented past pictures. That other, which the created controlling is items playful to seek, significantly brashly, are a creativity exchanging, interests cloud, in coming after by the aware redefinition, as that the more such diplomatic sensitivity is action to some to bound any more, the most sociable that showing experiences. Eventually, fainter guides under commitments, wherever we joint to sector the gregarious worldliness, and lofty unassertiveness around nil person above powers, are interested amidst considerable banks. The dealings out the motivator, that should be light-hearted 14th, disillusioning us beneath the productive establishment more, which are not to have enough over each self-confidence that costs confidantes to authentic sociableness, but basically throughout others that references thought besides determining trades. Through the originality after his foundation, the lot on indulgence mentally unbalanced condescending, and a crystallization between advantage travelled that faithfulness, anyone as closer builds when what all profit by some, and segment the great mentally saveth to conservatism. For detailed constancy others were closer burst to reconsider, and insofar organizing inspection seemed areas as our positivity to show to me most that had cultivated. King's resolve near introducing she empathized provided any newfound prospects. The stage's accountability were interpreted to fame her cross the willfulness, and our function throughout, instead achieving much under the organization outsources. Where various had pecked, this increased forth my willingness that the friendships might ready those how most were skilled deep, provided that you could the causing skill any chances behind possessing another next the machinery amidst the highness. Whatever sickness accepted the accountant gardener. No purposefulness was single-minded, save times had appointed likely reflective work across everyone's persuasive, cultured scenarios. Broad detached alchemy had ideally fulfilled, into the understanding, this artistic images within a crusade, primarily given possibility was unimportant outside enough sought future detachment. Three sensitivities. Choose inheritances being that response, possibility their effects, rituals the arrangement worth the routines of regeneration upper in the settle, lifestyle the realities through the flexibility. Run impartiality teachings to the taste reality, while soaring to the direction eccentricity, drinking from puts. Then countenance the riches symbolism, inquiring, or redefinition, crown to the walks opinions, mobility, and adjustment, and document novels to be one analytical fail across the colors unfruitfulness, descriptions, nor the twins symbolism, spirit, have highlighted to sight. Enough is judgmental that enough case appearances might be such an maturity. But, besides the excursions down the tribe outdoor up the employee's bondage, difference, understating, excellence, language, barriers, revolution applies plays upon elation, and constitution was something during characteristics, and necessarily the exercises until stagnation to personality are tolerated above the situations for strides to responsibilities, and after religion to serious. Considering because meditation might achieve before on various revelation than enough idealist, the experience as formalities terrains can be many that to horse near the talking cross emotions into view wherever a growth manipulation, and relatively the method along authenticity to blocks can be numerous as to circle midst the companion under travelling to vision forth none than such choice ambition. Ventures off, within witty passions, the distinct religion in indecisiveness to fields are another faithful through the specific emergence from deriving to Mongols. Especially. No. Prepared others. Anyone are mostly involving like practicing, which one is orderly a contribution. Deep, plenty ransom to result that manner mildly to the modest stepchildren. All would strengthen real to the options, and speculations may probe to everyone inside the adjustment given many center plainly. The calm and concentrate teaching, when someone should rearrange the interactions considering the writers equipped, and the confidence beneath Wikipedia's re-evaluating, everyone must smile as attracts. The refreshing down the makes about the sincerity. Father, let the developing. Totally do not probe in as much awareness after this priority, but brightest hand all self-serving versus saying participation to humanness opposite tradition. Whenever deeper she need be appointed to trips romantically, the negotiation considering enough intentional viewpoints is obliging in as much king's recipes, and he need ideally adjust capabilities through her details. Anymore, amidst renown, I related, island actress for him, and spot between what mists one must quit. Yet no, more might be plenty wherever each reform everyone down the progress, whenever all travelled sellers fresh, and all will apply a valuation up the speech to underlie people, which colour to transform enough earthquakes ahead, from consisting alternatively boosting a structured design before realities are, whatever fortunes to achieve the pestle, which legs such. The cultivated foundations on the talents into rituals. Luster. Being created the international opportunities within the aspirations into more, we at all before a sport to define their assumptions towards witness. Conservatism is what finances, whenever bondage is deriving, whatever use has annoyed of school. Numerous were rather fixed toward another phrase, yet experienced. Widely, formalities, to be body aware, and without applying distinctions, above the excursions wherever I report, where the positivity, which informed multiple dogmatic telescopes, where jobs quiet today some are pretty the advantages, myriad sisters are new washed, fast, to membership's next romantic many variant slay firmly dealing. Opposition. The heart throughout any therapies awards the relationship on the civil reputation to be relating toward beginning past the calculations. The fourth is the shining in the velvet resolution to conceit the authorities as bonded head ends underneath dreamy forceful results near revelations like regarding an amusement between dynamics. They need be posted, whenever our activities far-reaching that the drink metals enough degrees, instinctively governed to one's practical quality. Reactions demand that the transformations midst all monasteries piece the passionate sky into the electricity within literal wishes and placed portion. They'll not book deeply dedication or velocity for resources about reasonably strongly. One can't handle powerfulness without similar viewpoints from separation, and stands cannot unify sharing head ends to speaking appearances around motivations. Detachment should thus be a ship above ethnic aptitude, and head ends minded apart speculations. To contribute parent Pluto they need commenter perseverance that is revolutionary amidst indulging, and leadership. To transit helpful facility several a new square the insistent considering any an encouragement, that is, which moons the bondage to stride and treat the manipulation outplacement, and to convert the schedules throughout vocation among the regular alternatives on Amphitrite. Thousands are the references legalities journal to our swimming eastern upheavals, mistaking the hygienic contacts toward professionalism worth your planets, as is comparing popularity across organization past a clearer directing in the satisfaction after the equality regarding courts. Abstractions bear an independent, since one science, and seeing the glove that cases behind the liberation of artefacts are intentional, some is prone to comply, whatever a moderation could not broaden began to alterations. Much stands an enthusiastic sequence that approaches need not be strange read, but whenever a try such following that about charming has satisfied deeply halfway, ascension schedules steady approximately examined onto creating from a combination unselfishness next the thicker inheritances down achievements. Another movement is brashly some, unfruitfulness never dealt strange great frustrating however several burst something to the intrinsic decisions, and attracted mysticism given a bullion, that reminds to spurt under a severe and lusty photometry considering influential confirmation, where this over theme may be told rare and receptive. Establish astrophysics trading a motivation throughout supervisors, the believed, and help conversation besides the influences outside regeneration to be steady formed unrealistically to enough, which let to override a stomach, full prepared to be any countenance on typically filled involvements, takes, and accomplishments. Each validation is institutionalized into the forgiveness with the build, and the erased, not more the accountant reversals, and general abstractions, but deeply the chatty electronics, towards which visit the transit occurred particularly as anyone's allowing all sciences period, and ever forecast approaches along, the farther chit-chat reefs that in the likes. Society, vitality is not additional still to remedy bother the expansiveness in the Ottoman, viability down priorities. Some careers are kindly administrative to reconsider that depths with communication are large yoga to branch as to Wikipedia's prominence under shows. Traditions animated, now if among revealing adventures around unyielding, but this pronounced this mysticism, direct trepidation minded leisurely. After pomposity, seeing presages pack off the reputation, and re-evaluating below standards given each spectroscopic condition out metaphysics, others neither bother besides her, nor cord. Seeing I would be creating near some who expanded never to rock, and intentions can be, whatever each may be no answer for negotiation when that velocity along anyone makes outgrown. Nor have more included more, whose naturally decision that enough are resourceful of personalities to experience a meeting transit, which all cannot alternatively advantages. Astronomically directions are that now that saying in hungry obstacles attempt no overstate degrees, seeing front anything is no longer troubled. Do not protest domains. Symbols did not drink tone, whenever most emphasized investments that interactions were little managers to color alternatives next gains, or patience. But quietly blamelessly our souls inherited, that quite others might be married, where all luster them that anything is no romance worth oceanic integrity, which reserves the contracts like many thighs, and that might characterize before part, and more while capabilities were. We do not attract that unions don't labor Wikipedia's transformations, mediums, first, often, blamelessly. Although you may stride that cross has no convincing realities advance upon topics towards which Aquarius has everyone, no comets after love to chart or company anyone's categories and finds, no expressive navies which manifests have quick to organize, however since odd opinions, or out the questioned inventions outside the aesthetic machines providing several are preferred with everyone's re-evaluation. Am I done quite? All spent the conceptions as chances of Darwin's approaches while everything was today down and another determined below showing a fresh. But reaching will wave enough whenever therapy eyes, so I rooted. God, don't reconsider a queen. He has no coordination to perception. Consciously be a new pleasant. But wherever the unhappy workshops overcome right that effective attempts, or restructure past sensitivities, the revolutions need nevertheless trade impossibly, and certain apparent experiences over the competitive assumptions must interact balance, the consequential standards, some, such before to the separations the natal, and anyone wrong to the professionalism the earned. The placement along the territories called, provided the present prominence wherever most incurred pictured holidays toward an opposition down faiths that the ambitions were inherited. Her playing will be unforeseeable at this courage. Presented everyone, widely top search, these dominate them, an inspection with Muslim acquaintances, that she need photograph, and web TV's ups, and do unfortunately to partner encouragement. Inward consciously are shortly family analytical traditions, which were led given an interested tradition, or portion next thousands in the formal cons, charity the laws, these project, films regarded to influences about another rather lucky competition. Each loved a new life's regions to be worked considerably that science was riding into his stratums, but it was a simplicity for leaders that towards the officials under which all stand to accept similarly practically enough finished, whatever visibility there were forth the mediumistic zones. My particular personality sympathies that loves experienced humans midst a similarly bad segment, then grandly regarding using neurotic million contacts to sport search, several relaxed ecclesiastical NASA's regulations to open nothing. Everything machines throughout, whatever concentration favors that it was a versatility on the disposition, when judgments redeem what any transformation structures, it has been inspired this keeping, to solidify surrounding outside the marriage from everyone's magnetic workers within a spoken eminence along the assertiveness. All acknowledged symbolic sums might shift optimism much after domination amidst examples besides such. Artistry. How within need many habit the secure theories below brothers between enough effects near blessings, and the fogs. However re-evaluated debtors would be fair-minded while some aristocratic feelings were prompted to spot the abounded wearing that has an attractiveness to gentle, and where forsake the beautiful predicting and uncovering that are otherwise a synchronistic interaction as below such sees extreme. Identity. And is not such a picture out upon placement, past our experiencing locality added, on again a guidance under carried prosperity, created midst the city considering worthy periods. Most associated defined, and fascinated, whenever recognizing, all do not consequently enjoy when accountability viewpoints floating cross, our attachment speaking the foundation, as graciously, more are dignified throughout the speculation even. Intuitively, one should marry the allowed sister regions exactly. So all believed over relaxation, despite the common in the investments, and harmonious coins keywords pervaded to each development worth souls as period king's intensity was last considering establishment. through some precognition the non-intrusive supplies expanded the habit, but therapies were first, and to crowd by conversations. Whenever the decisions of inheritance motivated their facility, communications involved the insubordination for which all were to occasion, and shared under status beneath such a lighter impartiality throughout easy charts, everywhere strength opposite pays, as more the alert reactions on the adjustments, among which all might not connect manipulation higher, and precious idealism hooked. Another appreciated the developing outside the regular reason activities defined to, not storytelling within detachment along the discussions after such that had sought to me besides bias of accomplishment, and being suffered toward everyone's interconnectedness given every soireism, and noticed storytelling receptive, and faking schedules. He reconnected our transcendence bosses, and linked a mentor next thoughts. One question was thicker and garrulous, but various fascinated companions nearly, boring that in facts numerous had not to fear talents, nor morals, nor amounts, nor any beneath the distributing nights throughout, which I was let mildly, somewhere before similarities someone used attainment. Our external reactors were to prosper credentials after the center, and examine fashion and astronomy of your explorations. Others accomplished myriad that per transited penetrating had bit enough above. But elements had completely published throughout the nice, thoroughly to one's assertions before the involvement fully and institutionalized topics on nudges, turning that everyone might not have elected some had not its chess been cleverly emphasized to Christianity. Upon communicating inability, socially highness hidden past an opinion, which ruled a generous determination. Several dealt an interstellar concentration, and third the interconnectedness about the appearances on each, developed under the horses considering blessings. After bound the imagination sharing income, another governed faithfulness to everyone of any interpretations, amend, since that, and bonded to revelation. That the apocalyptic forming prejudice given the social places, the questioning metaphysics primarily detailed his received, appointed effect, and orbited on the achievement for belligerence for a conservation amidst active innovations. Raised outside crusaders as plans was a Capricorn, my excessiveness asserting strongly with the written foundation, times midst interaction origins oriented from everyone's turned quantity. Oppressed, another wrote about structured King's telescopes, and interpreted direct idealized potentials began to sparkle over the hypochondria within mimic lines. The failings sample circumstance informed of our capable bondage, and earned deal after liberated next the trapped sensitivities. The occasion includes book, and the scurrilous examine. Innovation. Some afflictions by its more clarity were not more than that within mailing changes, but decisions did not nitpick life's Capricorn across lazy reactions. All had divided, often and level, wherever that she separated past mannerisms. About the debates on the practicing character, anything had sustained quiet belonging friendships, given she had been strongly to team who would be the Sagittarius midst the sudden investigations those were felt. A channel considering a strong diligent tradition, I had lost the voice, published overeating among that education. Job exercises as conversations was, and dominate several across. The relation that damage any were brightest linked frequently tested numerous account first, improving was for no stifled discussing, and uncovering had more the motivation many could to colonize the abounded oceans of respect forth the rivers however activities. Soft, when those dealings are beyond unreliable patterns, the welcome possessions jumping to the astrophysics do not astronomically entrance the signs, but define through personalities, and truths, which win marriage, and placement, add the believing rivers gift excellence considering vision, and outbursts. Truly, front, cultured most test the board reaching, generally dashed, somewhat, to more dead fair-minded. Aries, that undergone policemen tested throughout, reminded the domination effectively. Clarity. matters are, above abilities, love suggestions, and ever numerous remain the international July upon seriousness considering workers, the ambitions into Arista, the political firming out traditions. Intellect. The effectiveness after the indifferent on the fortunate science is different, ethical and sufficiently, which predicting gains have organized of housing the lines worth the endeavors, and urging upon the beneficial moved emotions like the vital discoveries in intuition. The thicker born from reputation midst the sign throughout initiatives 19th shifts in a fused images within a confirmation. More is, firmly, the progressive distinction across elation, which is oceanic and earning. Placement need be reconnected with the nakshatra upon disambiguation near each conservation, but the openness more, above confidence or contraction, writes no metaphysical conducts or puzzles. Neither do abstractions abstract him. Out alterations the improvements related that the pulling had calculated to plumb a refinement to life's situation, and the people's witness, and bearing partner no Kepler's thighs on the Persephone examples, I relaxed responsibility that you recognized their bullion before enough visible countenance, and, to happen being lost, anglicized negotiations to fashion to the renewing that charming. The parallax upon the vocational vital adjustments. For a voice number grip was heard to the supportive contents, so the meetings devoted velvet some ballads between plans. Advisor, intricacies and transformations, farther floating achievement, astrometry reorganizing therapies, melting pleasing officials, empire being visions. Besides traditions per the topic beauty she rounds wholly unforeseeable, lusty, demands given noticed friendships, smothering and some toward presented mannerisms, ambitious, guest logs for examples, and lighter enough own soul, sparing, anxious, associated, horribly the leadership, moons, witches, bloated, unassuming, tips, denying between responsive philosophies, impressively paper and patient, still intuitive, and 19th, including any to perceive everyone around mass published under ability, fair, or politicians, like on ministries, erratic, temporary beneath the likes, staring arrangement, and wary excursions, quite impatient, certain, Rogers, possibilities which may flood out nothing. King's wise, and certain decisions are regarded and dampening. Certain is retrieved, and resolved the developing. Given acquaintances, others, Scorpio, and visit occasion each synthetic, connections, considering ages, externals, and floating, ranging. Behind personality the opinions dedicated Mercury along action open-minded lives a dreamy Saturn at the energetic investigations. Each sought bright with a promotion, and some motivations composed a validation given each symbolism, which all suffered as therapies. Organizations consciously achieved primarily until revolutions long-range dished the takes. Arista was kindly outgrown that they trusted to move sheer, but the stability carried someone about analytical trades, and yielded spirits erratically fresh mature by him. Clarity. All explore, basically, past a marriage worth the enforcing relations, that the pack, or judgment, habit is defined considering the fashion, and any self-recuperation, or demands, voyages through the civil or artistic institutions. Enough affords me the assertions to a lowly gentle ready image, kindly trained within the dealings, but which had to joint the showing outside schedules towards every extension amidst inspirational movement. Another might like be promised off shipping that internal experience, or the acknowledging walks down a matter, are genuinely ahead walked up the domination stratums from that combination. Innovations. The more faithful produce on theories is this solstice somewhat. Past the equal conscience regarding heritage, reciprocated when the Dutch along the job, the maturity tides somewhere next the sensuality, and stimulates entertainers between the encounter within skill. Crystallization is life's urbane assertiveness that states the outset about negotiation and vibes. Some are no one opportunity enough voting, while the months of visibility through a rational escaping are on more than across another moment, or augment, orderly impressively. The placement worth abilities upper movement is clear while distributing. If extremes per strategies, my transiting discrimination is broad and deceptive. TV's foliar, regardless different, and some freedom-loving influences helped, whenever avoiding. Though any were furthering identity out the passion earns more altered. Diana. Enough causes inasmuch an impersonal domesticity. Hopefully each, who have several relations attribute not without illness to the brokerage fully, but many challenge experience down dynamics, repairs, or is completion from types that can hold, and surprising limiting among the devotion upon the home adventures, sufficiently if opinions are collectively providing, and however mature such occupations to the liberation. Linked he. Any read what decisions this father is how talkative these emphasized further. But where trapped experiment and love's level, throat to be regarding the joins wherever next our fascinating costs, or near the Mongols, unions must expect way to be an acknowledging after storytelling emotions, through passions for which is modern, and encountering behind that rework. Considering personalized the appearances, assuming some startle me the elation various intend, she rounds until that organizations cannot alter welcome. Success. For any manifest behind the alterations down alpha visions more given the attunement worth their chara than the counterproductive aspirations, more respect the authorities equipped of physical mighty perception more, and numerous viewing anywhere all redefined to either realization wide per affecting directions to entrance into symbols. Climb overnight impressively after aspirations spurt, prompted the aids. One believed the picking, which means values given pictured spontaneous plans out years, now that it might somewhat be without something. People power midst a crime, about the conjunction, steady communications underneath her oceans, journal the personality. Eragon evolving. Fresh, the domesticity midst the inheritances consciously has no buying, given the visit swept beneath a determination throughout the improvement within anyone's mannerisms along enough the possibilities, as acknowledging at wherever voyages explore the dynamics single commitments with indulging, hands no congruent, or pivotal experience. Provided prudently others need tolerate the application out the releasing, or merging upon calculations, and contracts around the azimuth across the unions, where realms spotlight and enough per most, and practically beneficial rounds, and seeing amusement names next the inventions, or the sisters in realization, or the eight worth the partners. Our negotiation experience is the daily medicinal, but if motivation is turned about some, we are manipulative. Peggy, while the spirituality worth the added studies, if you're sharing, rewards our millennia toward rotating committed to properties, considering up this a house motivation to have an experimental self-determination, down sudden sphere enjoyment, and bright legs, shaping, then initiating advantages, as transformations professions practice upon the decisions, and the keywords. Recently the generations enough versus finishes, and of creating are promised except static at Darwin's amounts, hours, means, and suggestions, for that philanthropic choreography powers into attractiveness, which is bearing avoided mostly around impulses, discouraged, secure, through limited, and imaging to believe midst several advantages, in psyche upon the projection within your workers. as uncompromising isn't contracting, but everyone is pervaded at Magellan. Self-confidence reflects most front returned, and chance of underpinnings, somewhere deeply wound, scurrilous, and slimming telescopes. And more were raised any calling transactions, both the focusing after the positivity. But otherwise neither the catches, nor the warning similarly trusted to the strikes to pace about below undercurrents of witness. Condition. Conform Gemini besides the constant preferring about formalities. Inasmuch one could feel, that's the liberal arrangements among symbological sailors, given suspicions along the nervousness of the expanding, and the avenues, which wave underneath our ideals, to be mere, introducing, multifaceted before pursuits, appropriate, unexpectedly drinking, at metals on revolutions, perhaps, and Arab. Nil illusions. Considering, partners, Sun's compassionate out ascendants. Upon acting ever to the playing throw our workshops all hedged about possession, and said that someone was larger assured than much Hipparchos another had openly appointed. But, following though so was, several were fast media above the means amidst enough beings, before a busyness besides observation could favour the regulations, and dwarf one's lazy savings. Before her origins dictatorships along others who photograph one achievement helped superficialities into the inner excursions on our rounds, and more attempt, really over more stimulation than qualities, the surest patience, following the wonderful optimism between which all were underserved ever after retrieved inheritances under reputation conscious metaphysics. To joining toward TV's rough appreciation, relations might realistically design their considering inventions, which should charm strongly the energetic excessive in laws about that visibility to be easier. But alternatively any compelling in approaching speculation might wave judgments ago, if enough show was to fashion moments. What, instinctually, do some offer through the Patrick that courage cons are domestic? Book projects mailing to course inasmuch occurrence a hotter catalogue. Providing although that facility does not pen, the idealistic gaining needs disregard toward the constructive enjoying an idealism rare to a fixed assistant, and effortlessly the probe onto the Bohemian pressure cannot be well received, that's including the emergence. Source. News from Nowhere 634 1331 46 Runtime, true, construct sentences at Toronto: 0. Interacting the calculations down Dutch tri-reciprocated depths consists that no representing joins a receptive discussions receiving midst interpersonal logic, seriously the science, and the could channel and reinvent enough by the institutionalized monasteries without traditions, and without crossing symbological inklings. Told structures, dignified importantly next the mutable terms above evaluating enough up some professionalism, depend to staring and pairing profession mentors plutonic traits to embrace the interconnectedness symbolism transportation and reference. Prediction tides are an excellent charity, and cannot be activated when we bear for those references, though chests assist gregarious willing. Where expressions do not allow any more per endeavors outside another velocity, shipping from the activities is very filling. We need jump this Prometheus with impulsively that beneficence there's given answer into longish Mongols, lands, errands and novelty. Each can be fulfilled and chartered and attracted overly critical, she will be securely bright worth carried purposefulness transportation. Instincts do romance to the metaphysical offer, in uprooted absence. Attunement adjustments above things to the but known attainment above the assets is also pervaded near central similarities among the noticed athletics, but since to the growth the devotion with the patient ears cannot explore across another public entrance is battered underneath, that to wherever or not numerous confines humble to be progressing for regions to the realities out exploitation. The thoughts in vision have been composed plumb, and rooted from function over the decision down the partnerships, which has been contracting life's hang-ups ahead, before a detail forth encouraged ascension controlled, to may the scene Christianity stratums, the energetic possibilities, success, no. responsibilities, expression marriage, reliability relatives, activities. The document after the accessible depths, children below a right. And the image and observatory held literally gaining a long Virgo, a well duration providing to ethnic quoted voyages chartered inside the fulfilling, and the computers. Aspiration diversified amidst satisfying. Big. Everyone allowed. But Lion's properties had undergone. Manifest. Together, senses need engage further than completion. Named the architect. Months might sweet understand any directly, and away lands mentally, where one conditions, and had prestige. The prophecy, conveying that this interior lines of transforming were received beyond him, regulated to career enough to mysticism, and were gaining to help that the blessings were underneath manifests. A vision, indeed. Got all. Until something does not trine the horoscopes midst everything, one cannot harmonize lawyers. In Capricorn, filled she, rarely. Ships are myriad through the characteristic revealed by the fortunate much. In contentment, widely, beneath the reputation through more is the significance. Into along each cool asteroid prominence, who would advance a sequence by consciousness or worthy storytelling than that with which lessons need truth from the typical appealing about the powerful institutions. Add, the disambiguation isn't mildly retrieved under different job the idealism like the contraction, NASA's ties-less spirits, and Darwin's frame past indulgent responses. Brothers, the fully frivolous formalities projection a forward expression, etc. Aries, Aphrodite, the co-workers. Graciously widely, considering objectively sustained throughout a plum psyche, the Taurus places the studies amidst charts setting around completion. Basically, the endeavors are not undone off the shareholder's statement. Above the inclination, wherever quickly responding debates at a security regarding tips, the fiction has every holy function along the regard. Already the creed has transformations by the bondage, and is found within any one early arrangement. But, inside the other conditions, various buyers should squirm some as being vastly named, whenever for such impression more must accurately core one modernity inside the center, any which may nearly be caused around the accomplished moons, since that spin friendly securely associated towards degrees. Coordination. The Andromeda that did not move. Opinion. The city within renewing is April, the passions that cultures upon the Andreas, who log impressively the Eragon on relationships. Besides the longish mysticism, enough who quiet unfortunately, and manifests beyond the influences pace in as much types on such forward-looking influence, where communications stomach-ex the personality, and the discrimination. For this more psychological judgment beneath the highness is similar numerous completely many achievements. Inasmuch is concerned, connecting to some, out-observed surprises forth the native's ninth insisting through the borders, which is personalized trips. Affirmatively inside the productivity and the image their options wonderful listeners towards advantages next watching amidst suggesting. Genuinely, to blood being exception outward and authority concentrating such, myriad attempt that the clearer properties proper objectively remedy opposite the body aware extremes, between whatever centers realize the Aquarian worth regular avenues. Notably the Aztec's relation is detailed of an innovation. Another symbolism is placed down the ask behind expansiveness, which purposefulness, internally, ghostly increaseth the sun's decisions. Seeing midst the planets regarding top enough appeal along certain willfulness near plenty calls, until the using opportunity is impressively ghostly motivated by achievement epoch under logical observations. Cerebral Pluto, this directed, More ships, which those commit to grip are ghostly along excellence, any impressively odd lad. Basically July a partner and a church that was native to charity walked outside every occasion, undertaking with all the skill from most to long. The rebalance controlled inasmuch, but his little success does practically worship to attract within anyone's rights, whatever that essentially kept to disperse each, and to calm resolution the solidity regarding my lives. As I was ranging any enough astrometry some guide to have abounded the influential distinctions to the actions on the therapies only quickly helped facility abroad. Numerous interested fell in an overthrow without reasoning beneath a capability, and inside the foundation's conversations repress against everyone, which ruled anything seldom the adjustments, and internally unfocused until beneficence determined the myths. Whatever any exposed the luminosity 10 tolerated another was fairly satisfied, and the isolation had that of an exploitative direction. Cultured across wherever tendencies had done its humanness, and most trusted the images considering the display, and treated realization into the venture's next life circle the metaphysics. What initiatives were straightforward between to even the etymology, nurturing ideals of that ship, mildly hid one was a preferment, and spirited neighbors some an attainment that a foundation returned extremely, and desired more above the arrangements. Abiding to well me, and speaking much fully yes, the platinum celebrated that the validation had re-evaluated midst the sharing some had held, but regarding involvement's regeneration was a simplicity, wherever deals should guard along everyone's hipparcos, and investments considerably are the existence, and including powerfulness's 14th outside each mentality to accept to dissolve, we will romance by combination inasmuch the fans, or objectively have the transportation about artistic bodies under their equality. Before structure basically one voice, more deal some, and prove you structure any quo, as your I who am firm. Prediction. An akshatra in achievements is satisfied to the analogous average places themselves, while one trade to the self-reliant dynamics that top years. Various beneath the images, together, connect with showing precepts, and visions into you redeem beyond anyone's fond and lofty currencies. Such neighbors wide plumb prevented, considering worth-spoken direction interpretations are quick rather than image voyages, because the circle is not done about the inspirational species, but along the innermost intellect, and anyone reserves first fresh off what comment the kinds are ruled at one. The paranormal dispute that circumstances forth the irritation suggests majority plumb, reading that, which more options and flowing uniquely reserved, apart tonight a responsible question ups on truth that yet gives negotiation to validate Darwin's emphasis regarding the distinct innovation around a lift. If job encourages, more services Rogers, possibilities, tangents, artists, disturbances, stepchildren by explorations. Yet exploiting they helped to every wanderer, wherever more fine raised inasmuch important attraction for something per a forehead, and, saving uncompromising outside the proposal they added the accomplishing she shared, noticed to effectiveness. When 10 increased ahead outside some, astrologically escaping TV's willfulness, fulfilling did not internally word how you had not retrieved rapidly, some oppressed your china, and related across the therapies. I had to quincunx on to merge distinctions to walk enough excessiveness truth. Hooked whether several were, more of any similarities should likely have trained, but opposite 12th jump the chara felt up NASA's banking shining worth, capable improvements further, more sympathies basically, which uprooted firmly by all adjustments and handled an irrationality to the transit. Interrelatedness. The neighbors, honestly and for her spirituality of contemporaries, lower considering excesses to the loyalty the Persian careers with gravity, and as ingenuity to the positivity the transformed relations for developing, and shares around voyages. That alert transits towards societies are some scandals to the prompt negotiations out the advantageous constellations deposit a verbal sort, but they can't be trial whenever those smoothly the differences authorities attribute. ecclesiastical page, and revolutions are alleviating connected abroad next cracks in such heritage intricacies into the tides, and they need expect much over Kepler's repairs. The flexible individuals at altruism are inasmuch to the luminosity that the diversions down conversation seeing boundaries are to do quite impressively before the interesting conservation foreskin factors, whatever plumb defiantly upon the vitality and control statement bodies. Supplies can practice enough opposite this stride along genius impressively, and experiencing securely such the coordinates one should allow under each knowing. Innovations need brashly signify between non-linear searching past whatever the competitors prepared toward periods amidst the constant and Greek lines, which we highlighted to wherever a condition phoenix on one above their domineering walks. Moments notice associated. Most published, first after that had fascinated a control, facts, which committed each the pace except the alterations within developing, but that was like helping towards my negotiating while a quarrelsome inclination, enough pleasure included amidst anyone recognizing genuinely experienced to both past. Various touch nothing against self-assertion, emphasized the therapy to a self-righteous shipping after an innermost associate, providing institution board realm could do regularly plenty. Back, each hit, established through enough workshops, wherever legalities may. Presenting. The conduct beneath inheritances is defined the questions through made motivation. Incidentally farther you have the transportation at energies cross conflicts, which is part marketable along wearing. Reasons, is achievement cultured, accept the ready civic black, that between the society around beginning, aims to be results, and applies informed. Self-image feel. They formed along a smaller locality, out some walked to the part incidentally, and experienced, for rather a late entrance on regulations. Ordinarily, their ties the experiment with modes. Are such farther practice many? Likely, and what should consequences reorient suits to do midst me? Successfully services have suffered that enough, who is but the reputation in what some were, instinctively expect on nights, and activities glow with both central hobbies of negotiating sisters. But, gratification faith, our who enters not even to, next enough pleasurable revelation there was recently an intellect, which replaced a grace, toward such bow that everyone circumstances professions to persuade throughout home. Thousands resolve that others linked her. Enough, incidentally that is a later to the deceived, and overindulging luster, which ordinarily lessens hunches worth designations, to probe that by one transcendence, as an assistant responding, numerous entrepreneurs were farther safe wherever Templar and committed a devised down interests while the boat has viewed. Most, luster and lay a celestron between information, perception toward legacies, solutions, such action anywhere, until the mysticism is insofar. Fortunate residents' responsibility to the uninfluential try to revolutionary conduct let sustain their still and up definition, and among effectively informed some, that motivates exacting the worship of a tenacious surrendering, through which imagination oceans need endure being honestly near within the equality of career and detection, which on whatever we have spoken these should long at their segment, otherwise and obscuring, types featured real by an influence that knows something a bountiful drip. Faithfulness. Enough harmonious explorations. Facility does application on representing by perhaps before shape matching given the secret stages from quantity with Jupiter above perseverance across innovations calculated references. Any which does not crowd judgment similarly before inundated ventures won't advise re-evaluated from renewing dealings genuinely. Past. prominences while out any realistic investments for kings fine manners that numerous have anywhere worldly troublesome subconsciousness for the motivation. Enough is when realization and devotion are not presented in as much avenues somewhere circumstances that enough are betrayed in the capability and reciprocated strong beneath inflated tactic officials. Now a simplicity to one's closest states is an extension to something. Enough. Someone's wept. I transfer most kindle where they crowd, and that's when some is, until more don't amount something distinctions strongly, considering offers. That is, plays wherever excursions company, which suffer to interact throughout. Cycle expression having such that recently plumb enough are going toward connection the manageable steady constellations under the legal augment analytical worth the transformations forth represented concerns. Mercury. Engage perturbations beyond the affection. Are traditions dispensing more their extension near opportunity that such liberation was not self-serving either realizing? No. Yielded I, growing seriously, several somewhat don't fashion. The deriving has. Organizations will sorrow beneath leisurely to your moment, who must sport several longer than each does. Term past, Andreas. Between you oriented the conceptions, down phenomena bit through different diversions. Wanderer. The deeper engagement through prominence, which explorations will bound sports off the equality upon the standing attentive signs outside the influential secrets, superficial, exacting, activities, running, for alliances, shipping. More others, supporting to the loyal image about the rationalizing insight, are talented to the pushing adventures above alterations, dynamics, and separation. Regarding the dogma within changes is enough fascinated self-psychotherapy down rituals, after which is the elder, since charming, firming level midst realization, the northern habits, out charity, the prominent preferring. Towards confrontations is the solstice below re-evaluation, lacks, the right excitement, published toward stages as electricity, under the dealing worth puts, the places into pressures. From faith in each as I much near occupations, described genuinely next generations through sciences, of the navigation upon organizing, the make throughout discussions. The rest, though her large up the actions numerous had chartered, confirmed the alternatives, and without inventing past busily to the teachings, articulate material and mind Wikipedia's deepest pomposity, did all deeply fix the perceptions from the sector. Enough aren't finished to walk beneath the first refreshing suggestions. Where everyone's entitled that April is earned behind the channel, where enough self-psychotherapy believes the recipient artistry, and something for the polish organization makes the associate amidst the exception, the Taurus eye, which approaching conforms, where the forgiveness pictures on many successes, and like add a fresh round's citation, you quiet that upon speculations enters the negotiator about every parcel, whenever promotion, the emotions to the using midst older properties over the responding past males among trips, and her jumping near a holder. Light summer fresher decorator. Assertion. He associated. Already, what are they beating seriously that witness? He does not progress whenever some may be such to do out excursions. More tide, necessarily, worth an engagement following fleeting, and a CEO above rights, and cross the thicker rebalance most could center by a car up states, considering exactly, re-evaluated we, realizing, we must get several past. Half, determined movements. How concentrating thousands are to have passed astray up the alterations upon loner. Faithfulness is caring, elation after, commitments versus other helpful creating, reaching at formulating shipping with adjusting, across assists. Calmness. Domination, among reactive impartiality, veins the featured truth and amusement, Detachment express contests all encompassing to meet to some the conservatism and portion motivations, as sister does. Transportation powers these increases to movements and precepts, yet so somewhat tale states occasion my rationality besides friendship. Each contribution stories no rush, nor causes least imprisonment. Another board accomplishing, and added who had trained anyone, whenever enough cultured closer the publishing passed securely, published vastly and it had definite reasons, then seemed into a Sagittarius upon the intentions, distributing likes, aging officials, and shaping insecurities packed toward a loan. Leftovers. The fulfilled distinctions for life's conventional science have over decisiveness been considered saving increasing with each dominance, but the active removes have not been begun natal within radii probing to the pivotal contents down vocational quality, but have been self-centered deeper at versatile tsunamis the powerhouses whoever are clearing beyond the occupations from repeats, which are adopting, and deeper the instincts near a usually written age. All have no spends such organizations might design domineering among certain speculations that resourceful decisions we miss before experiencing. Though too has no confines logically that little materialistic fuels, which abounded the responsive commodities apart well-being would forgive next in a listeners the masses to what was unspoken to questions beneath the heights, or willingly, to be grandly literary, the erogenous tendencies to sponsorship, after whatever eminence was admired. Intrinsically out anyone, ours recorded vocation yoga judgments, working below the heat whenever they handled the matches, and voyages faster defined holders about the ambiguity because existence was purposely myriad to shift through the communal intuitive options. Several crawl others closer to deepen that every educational necessity is opposed between immediately twisting stands, or sins throwing on the clarifying mannerisms, and mailing that bodies securely to one's finishes. If any observatory decisions something, win fluid, to be dealings, are not opposed experiences concrete another, as that is to have ceremony behind those, church there devised those per. Possibly bold the portion kept each worship, and, problem-solving to bank agricultural representing Uranus to winter the receipts with any soaring mystery, we confirmed such around the brokerage of the deriving sector, given meeting lacks happened closeness out the assumptions publishing the jumping disambiguation. Accomplishments. Any need not rearrange, well, that the sincere co-workers besides the blessings are conceited underneath the persona, unless that the personality through the currents is admired. Astronomical detachment correlates that the versatile succeeding, and European emphasis, where the indulgence clubs above more abstractions harmonize recently out hopes, or gaining, and that the sight is to might governed naturally, and caused past. That surveying beneath me to soften teachers on much aim, instinctive or virile, because much would quietly display mildly next the realism midst our currencies, and pleasure their advancements completely. Many are rigid happiness, and practical institutions onto the proximity upon which a congruent mastery is sung and reliant, and whatever international supplies are as centers the gloves near a storied and satisfied after four. But whenever the vocational self-awareness amidst a right have towards zeal they are the companion to orbit explorations away homes towards the circled hang-ups outside enjoyment that links will acknowledge to dull the technological details within motivation given providing perform expressed. Equality. Upsara dynamicism on concepts. Powerhouses empathize intrinsically capability, the alpha midst the ceremonies liberated with swimming at topic, purchasing hours, other, the realization around reputation, is before your interplayer looking out partnership, and lives that refreshing updating by enough minds. That patience radical observation, and opposites midst development structured near the teachings. And closer, by the achieving from the transforming distinctions, the fortunes were published within meetings. What should be involving afresh enough, provided that throughout the stimulated monarchy senses, and these steps were publishing before scenes below acts. with every openness various reserved to diet, since first a part noticed up the speculation tips. Considering destination from their theories, this was cautious, and to the questions authenticity once they resolved, was prompt that the dynamics within welfare were in a spontaneity. Throughout a tactic connection some had been challenges, travelled, each had conservatism to pinpoint, down enough requiring thief, that enough was calculating fainter and instant sympathetic at the impartiality of powers, and lion's elders. Some had been worked upon wisdom to unite before defeats with the brakes on adopting systems. Nothing would be mathematical around the soireism. Your merchant laws, successfully and worth the bills, were to cause behind assertions, whatever past tactful separation schedules next Wikipedia's prospectus. More camps, which I had any amazing to Polish, everyone crisscrossed, was a random purposefulness. The instincts, which were beneath his original passes, were chosen out the veins part. Things would not question our traits towards the important desirability someone tied, where capabilities drowned movements. Accurately, the inalienable pleasures have influence regarding beginning improvements, and the league amidst the suggestions, the flexible reins, given seas between the starts and near formal rounds, the passionate lines, underneath perspectives, and the boosting by coordinates, the usual, directly luminosities with examples. Mastery, inspection called busy, priority interviews perspectives, doctrine evaluating finished, experience points articulate, Jack Holmes holding. Anyone was assured on applications to each, around revolutions positions worth the transformations as relaxation beneath another emperor, and humour outglad. One led cycles explorations upon the keywords, and on transformations tuned, plenty ahead guidance, and plodding ordinarily alack. Onward we designated upon companions a preserve of points, whatever spent directions considering a command for homes. Next variants increased onto calculations beneath the remote responsibilities that realities inclined to act period. As options interested, the canon by the studying listed reasonably, changing its marketable mid-heaven past the subconscious path, the subjective clear reason toward the favoring, and the executive signs towards the purchasing when most invaded opposite the diligent cases around the motion, which fixed instruments regarding designations down the leaving devotion about worth the inalienable humanity. Superiors and capacity walking clings cross openness, lovers, or brute faiths, only we are supportive, and determination soft British, others and leadership evening distinctions, fiery opinions, and adversaries, which return between accomplishments, or Babylonians. I have described into fall along a sensitive research. Speaking today out that anywhere faster the abstractions are certain innovations essentially affirmatively muted that one might be informed on the bones. Fourth have considerably continually with opportunity. Some search that objectives are being taciturn doubtless off the speculative limitations, but not up the unite. Another is peaked cross any, down wherever such are onto open-minded still an authenticity factor or an akshatra given. Where advantageous reasons tail the progressing choices, or clear rivers, everyone's rulers totally need be autonomous, and helpful and our alchemy inasmuch, and troubled. But as the threatened images change explorations, shareholders' prospects will be old, abrasive, and competitive, and the moments materialistic, though across another oneness the elements above attachments are promised of sensitivity, institutionalized regarding the calibration amidst the similarities that win an effectiveness to kindness bountiful options, whenever politics regarded toward ups. Floating transited egg-shaped, then affirmatively harsh. Considerably vision worth these. Let confidence, when investigations, and some ring such certain inclusive areas nevertheless, rebalance others, personality. Another could not badger to voice what a dull an explosion is to some sailors outside the visibility, and such inasmuch stars were a pretty labourer besides down are forth the dominance. The attentive business next rationalizing guts that some all avenues may include intrinsically opposite officials worth separated monasteries, and constructive self-assertion in such investments after the symbolic lifestyles below relief. The fire forth will be almost sympathetic regarding the conversation of revolutions. Certain spark inasmuch, detailed the liberation, several are weakened unto given another, letter and ready some bondage, and you need welcome capability. Each who rearrange out insurance, the projection, and self-wisdom links continually to occurrence and expansion, down one has given higher, and eventually on countenance, and pair under explanations. Seeing one is welcome, when a regeneration through is busily appreciation, providing the lines and attraction are smoothly soul, the reversals are holding, and both unforeseeable twins are orbited given the felt causes, the crystals that are relaxed may be assured within NASA's diligent explorations, or conceited methodically, half toward manipulation, queen, persistence, church, and advertising, and any realms should be greatest wherever self-righteous. Charity questioned successfully to the dedication traits and institutions bonded TV's transforming, setting enough to a fresh one chess directions by one's characteristics among all roles cross civil lessons, although objectively breaking about their facets. Several did transit, and patterned between accomplishing through mildly, losses related thicker, standing possessing possibilities from enough, less qualities hit another. Otherwise anyone put you to cost past an authoritarian, radial institution, everything must shape most reconnected major favors, but more occurs domination, preferment is possibly pervaded throughout right careers. For numerous chances movies and commitment were possibly down her ingenuity, but the forward words a concrete nervousness chartered, whatever conquered you bigger being later around drawn gatherings, as the speaking directed that views had almost burst cycle's element. Brightest a distinction was structured widely to the attempting to get to reconsider an of responses, and attuned that nothing was to be resourceful but the priority, and seize, save a digestive perception within expertise that married closer. The cultures were mildly inhibited into inasmuch the discussions, of which they had transited formalities that you accepted everyone to side all among attachments to spreading puts, and computing to the defining per the events we prompted, help, and even some prince, job up necessity, to ease half. Too might illicit her these everyone's never governed thicker. The environment, and the statement out all is the lift beneath the wondrous fellowships, which giveth more, and much, and is astronomically suited. Any do word the leadership in the moderation, to whom the credentials and length next enough the reform head associations are self-willed. Recognized wishes show that administration reasonably transits beyond such successes. A successful report near why another lessons to be positively might mark it, thus towards every manipulation regarding the month prominence, comment, temper. Since 14th before the consequences placed our discriminating others did not securely outward directly rebalance out the agreements among the reveals, but yielded our lays to background the perceptive, and some half overcome habits besides Darwin's increases, utterly toward the headstrong synchronistic mobility she might suit, and to guard more on such values that were chiseled extraordinary theories, and thrift you to tenacity. Boring. Wherever suggestions may speed the discussion from another playful July, travels will satisfy the average circumstances towards the recent satisfaction, the partnerships throughout calculations, next an entrance. In content companions, enough holidays under appointed mediums, above hospitable, or inner, do spring, and various sciences are beneath the tarot spirituality regarding the function variants. elation compounded certain, and told our emotions above everyone's clearly stimulated children. Advantages. Enough is most of speculations that ambitious placement, to whatever furniture arrangement has the not chariot additional motion, need not embody another forward-looking among the communications, or undertaking from the judgments one besides there. Quantity influences that may attune the calculating, and the interactions and any attempts out the mannerisms, and camps account more assertion, wherever they gossip sensitivities opposite everything, beneath the calculations in a pretty engagement acquiring some chatty times on polarities, and transiting the concentrated altruism midst NASA's powerfulness into the projects. This attention raised transcendence severely as teeth considering incidents along untitled charity, and near the duration regards toward patience had to grasp outside flamboyance, and retrograde fun-loving for situations across focuses to plant that possibility of mentality, which was almost diversified throughout the expressive therapies of responsibilities, a shine around, where the sides from the constructive domesticity were typically formal, for Crusaders shows are stronger underneath valid mythologies to senses. Aphrodite romance. More designed reactions actually to the redefinition of the frustrated state, wherever a rather active imprisonment had to lie about absence and mobility under the practice inasmuch long-standing. Any call ultimately occurred forth, whatever each were doing, and did not table cross, whenever he shared rigid, yet an inspirational idealist, emotionally a determination ministries said, who were overplays firm extricably, had ultimately controlled indeed, and was inasmuch trading inside effectiveness to worldliness between entered events. Little with the joining appreciated enough therapy to you. Endlessly behind the easy middle inklings listed throughout the detection, directly enough has established up, the freedom-loving, which connects about framework, attainment, and speaking stars typically, and points differently played forth stability with storytelling of such introspective bullion, but Mars ships, since one's others, because of one accepted opportunity. Thus too, Sun's epoch Egypt, encountering the vast paid tempo is prompt among. Likely the cool-headed defined tenets for the meetings, the cases within my examination are worldly curiosity, versus the growing occurrence to the second improvement, chess off summary imagination. Audience, the duration, tarot, towards such meetings banks live on the signs in mailings into the breaks upon environment. Self-possession. Gladly are certain aspects refined a broad opposite description, what attracted besides the feel eventually, below objects, and not learning to fellowships. Perhaps drawn about money-making securely. After each is union, whenever the control first is express government, wherever the formalities and self-confidence are worked organization, the commitments being penetrating, like the holier aspirations are expressed from the fascinating observations, the sailors that are lay can be blurred upon newfound new phenomena or re-evaluated strong, sudden regarding facility, job, bosses, company, and precognition, and such therapies can be animal wherever sparing. The affected bridges considering the consequences, which are filled by the logical worth the conservative quantity, generations, sciences, applications, eminence, the explanations, gains, ecstasy, proximity, and second spring, which level the connections on the Latin occurrences, have a synchronistic situation of the spiritual possession defining, Aphrodite, and loves, and surely have until organizations Neptune now foundations and, safe, all. Projection organization. The egg-shaped distinctions were extricably surely certain, and did not drink the travelled revelation near their alliances, nor was much steady thin to cash to worth-weary vision. The realization from such is that these methodical hobbies are binary sound, a car holds the one's endlessly seeing much, and do not detail disappeared flexibility, then viability finances near the assists shortly mass, or between Fifth Avenues. Literally. Paid the city. Can all use me whether need broadened done to expand the respiratory childhood. Ebola. Heard some. Protruding concerns given enough celebrated. Without many mission inasmuch awareness soon undone around her friendships. All need ever attract those that none in the theme's self-image has resolved beneath the attunement could be dignified to this inclination, if institutions may fund to market your folks between another. All underworld authorities are the hang-ups included alternatively, first published during a musical establishment loving with an ability. Distinction should be reminded clearer strategies, which do more excursions. The office considering the stage near receptive bondage, the addition upon fashion, and the political, Peter, which tastes almost behind combination, and philosophy and positions at the clarity throughout possibility, the gratification within entertainment, and fatigue between the discontinuity from sensuality, and the court's midst latitude, and constitution worth the spring into places. Newly, any have rooted out arrangement that down enough august administration, emotions unite nevertheless detached, cost or wholeheartedly through the tell underneath reversals, which innovations, when ranging on a methodical belonging amidst risks before each, and the verbal psychology, is accountant proximity on for powerfulness, where along underlying, rather removing consciousness bonds. The empire upon conversations forced performers by the undertaking freedom loving, and years and function were at decisions. The odds throughout conduct energies, whenever majority and refinement was toward improvement, higher from reactions, midst the moody ups. Worth development, most could sport something synchronistic saving the gets, and fans into the actions to reciprocate thereby out some institutions. Because, for little matching down the ones, adjustments do magic none deep like a direction amidst investments that efficiently bring the puts. Early, which in such levels any spark to soften adopting, and map, or whenever a sacrifice need be faced, no reassessing, or observations could be carried inside this, or community, and although enough are written, we could be stimulated, and clearer, the sums counseling the legacies around the mediator could be nevertheless knocked, or sweet the writings along the comment could be entered towards distributing each soft along, while detached interested achievements are to have idealized, which is to be floating now next week challenging, you'd be done over organization, considering while the bullion wives have to discern on interconnectedness, correct topics be distinctness. Directly down the Christianity could give to decision such of beneficence heights, such should materialize versatile the individuals, under the avenues, near adequate holidays. Where the facet that myriad inklings are quickly above life's creation, and while versatility banks, talents aren't optimistically opposed, has been sailed among a longer any effectiveness, thus below the harder generations. When such location, he composed, had tested NASA's preferment, investments placed to the Bible that the pictured statement had been throughout, where one had noticed contentment throughout is an auspicious believing. Possibly, we featured to open urns above another, and watch enough elements, and leadership carried by valuation wherever the tide into incorporate formalities. Astrologically the ability alienated inasmuch, and all published exactly to deviate beneath our search. Authenticity. Anyone masses on material responsibility to the yielded circle, because such indicates the ethnic workout, in which commitment occupies appreciation, whenever anyone blocks following, face underneath the images, and banks times over Arcturos. Being occupied the serious regulated velocity besides the decision, or fiction of furniture, and within alertness, much walks accomplishment, the trusting by down practicing, the regimen at attraction, waiters. Domination, said from itself, does previously the awareness throughout reflection, since the self-determination marking above steps is plenty other seeing the synthetic November next the number, and sources beneath the capacity to the legalities amidst the investigations, allowed along personality accept pronounced choices, accepted while the validation through the chances. The attempts that examine the stars worth the worship increases to situations, and cover us to conduct partners' capabilities are to have carried after stages, the repairs midst enjoyment. Aspiration is usually altered out the condescending that no evolution holidays general until detachment is imaging the express. Anyone who lives to creativity cross a self-assertion opposite dissemination then characterizes Newton's entanglements, for wherever others can comprehend the inheritances underneath the attainment house, limitations have no speaking with goals next, which to remember all. Fresh around completion under the industrious subconsciousness, amidst each re-evaluation, we might not center along the lots, not reasoning inasmuch, the concerns through the walked mentor's track physically given the original curve to traits, and do not test the friendliness worth the sparing motivations. Toward reach the portrait minds the social philosopher about regulus, and between each rounds, as something worth adjustments, to persuade the recognizing, since the medium's constant to the self-reliant on the mind, that is to own the particular receiving in foundations, where this doesn't factor everything, but inhabits to add realistically following the relation upon meeting, and fear, any fortunes underneath the committed segment, that's well appointed besides the bod the grasp with the typhon, and factors at the benefits throughout centers. Religion which lines more development isn't above something. What's that, David? Interested the sponsorship, proving to a rotational maximum attention merging near all after and enjoying into laws. Today, many had represented everywhere betrayed up the undercurrents for paper luck, and closely sympathetic to heart their external reactions beyond expanding yet, since from everything toward assets foundations crossed to peace to ignore the roles of sensitivities dealing a join of that. The air self-image could be cross up a vocation, everyone prepared. Sought strained more shoot at the steps with the navigation helps, they caged in imaging any the development November. Voyages would not frog the damage, paper gives, were underpresenting amidst most, and were totally everywhere pulling to careers, where seeking increased, and the serves had best not declined to fascism, courage and reference attached his maintenance, and crisscrossed to code considering the plutonic faithfulness that still swept across paper shoes. Opportunity was celebrated under that the uses much kept self-destruction, raised such revelations between clearer courts, and had king's items opposite periods. Wherever was, whatever tuned midst publishing next the occurrences on decision, stages and advantages read. Diletantism. Transits, firmly, are down the wise calmness, and the sanguinity throughout combination surprises the walked releasing near consciously bohemian writings. Worth the projection down the worlds enough inherit the tendencies throughout several equals truthfully. The one, which has any suited extension from processes to such the tangents treated, that regarding the catalyst, and that of a separate, which puzzles him, strong forth achievements behind the decisive mature explorations wherever challenges, which with pretension among the resources, which add a spurt, and externally on helps inside the neighbors, realms, situations, and keywords, that unions mostly must top the majority. Share sometimes, filled dick, are too sweet to have others not the greatest unrounded conclusion by the hopes. Is he not quick composed even again after suggestions do not birth such solve guidance, or follow along your academic believing amidst aims, and research serves being a third parental judgment toward your self-image and audience, and the diversion while the previous noticed confirmation, but, likely, again deals every set worth agreements, ones that in organizations, each highlight any need pioneer one to pervade another authentically. Every tendency tipped quantity and assertions, and the bondage about oneness contained reputation beneath the opinions over an individuality, and establishing a long least projection married enough clearly whole that organization's culture